elitist, but it's seen a meteoric rise under its owners Liberty Media, not only in popularity and viewership, but in the ability to almost print money. From greater access to more races, here's how it happened. For decades, Formula One was owned and run by one man, Bernie Ecclestone. He was old school, someone who thought the sport itself was enough, and there was no need for all this modern marketing and social media nonsense. But in 2016, Ecclestone agreed to sell his baby to American group Liberty Media. It cost Liberty Media $4.4 billion, and they quickly got to work. We got an F1 app almost immediately, and teams were allowed to show us more from behind the scenes. One of Liberty's most important deals was with Netflix, which in 2019 brought us Drive to Survive. The effect? An almost 70% rise in viewership for races in the US alone. It's massively benefited Formula One online too, with a rise from 7.8 million followers across its social media platforms in 2016 to around 50 million today. New eyes are on the sport too, with F1's own subscription TV channel, which people can watch anywhere in the world. But the main market they've tapped into is the US. There's now 3 races there a year, in Texas, Miami and Las Vegas, and an American-branded team, Cadillac, getting involved in the sport too. More races seems to be the direction of travel. A street circuit in Madrid's being welcomed onto the calendar, while conversations around a Grand Prix in Africa have ramped up in the last few years. More big events could be in the offing too, after the massive F1 75 season launch event in London in 2025. 7.5 million people tuned in to watch it live across their social media channels, and that doesn't include the viewing figures for where it was broadcast on TV in certain countries. It seems Liberty will do whatever they can to grow the F1 brand. Their efforts have been worthwhile too, with Forbes valuing the sport at $17.1 billion back in 2023, almost 4 times more than what they bought it for in 2016. Not bad, considering it's seen as a sport where people just drive around in circles.
Good morning, you're listening to Ade Oladipo and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT. Just gone 10 o'clock with you until 1. So Newcastle are hopeful of completing a move for RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko, but Manchester United are waiting in the wings. No bid yet from Manchester United. Who should the 22-year-old join to further his career? We'll be taking your phone calls on that one as well, 03717 223344. Meanwhile, we are going to be speaking to MP Clive Betts on the crisis at Sheffield Wednesday. And was Daniel Levy right to criticise the length of time the investigation into Manchester City is taking? And we're going to be hearing from people behind a landmark legal case against FIFA, which could see players terminate their contracts for free. We'll try and explain that a bit later. This is Ade Oladipo and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Good morning, Mr. Jordan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. That'll be game-changing when we discuss that FIFA Pro judgment.
Almost bigger than the Bosman ruling.
Yeah, it is. It's not for free because there'll be contractual obligations upon. If a player wants to breach a contract, they'll still have to pay some form of compensation because there'll be the compensation of the contract. But the transfer fee is not indexed to the player. So it's a fascinating thing. It's very, very good for clubs that don't sell players.
Yeah.
Very bad for clubs that do sell players because if you unpick the transfer system and you have no value.
For smaller clubs, it's a nightmare.
Sure. Yeah. If you're Spurs and Arsenal that don't sell players and make any profit on them, there's no big deal to you. If you're a club that does sell players and this gets enforced and becomes the de rigueur, it's like a real challenge.
Brighton, for example.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And if you're selling academy players, it's a real challenge. But players can't just leave for free. They can't, the Isak situation will be interesting to see if he wanted to invoke the circumstance because all they can really do is enforce or the clubs can really do, is enforce the contractual obligation that the player has. But they can't hold his registration in the meantime. Which all that happens then is the player will sod off to another football club, irrespective of the transfer fee, and probably get the other football club to pay the compensation that they owed to the first club for the contract that they didn't fulfil.
Crazy. We'll be talking about that at 10:45. Stefan Borton's going to join us at 11 o'clock as well, financial football expert, to go over that at 11 o'clock. So loads to talk about that situation. Liverpool played their first games at Anfield yesterday. Yep. 2 pre-season friendlies against the same club, Athletic Bilbao. Before the start of the game, they paid tribute to Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva.
Rightly so.
And the Bilbao president laid wreaths in front of the cop.
Yeah, with Phil Thompson, yeah. Absolutely right.
It's such a... they say time's a good healer for things like this. It's going to be such a difficult, I think, situation for Liverpool to ever get over that.
Yeah, of course. And for the players that were very close to the individual player that we're talking about, and obviously they weren't close to his brother, but the brother was also tragically lost. I mean, the biggest losses and the people that lost the most are the family.
Yeah.
So it's those that we must keep in mind. The fact that he was part of a very significant football club, and a football club that has great emotional investment in the people that play for the club, that people represented the club. And that's what football does very emotionally, very well at times. Sometimes it involves itself in things that it doesn't need to involve itself in, and goes after causes that it shouldn't be involved in, and does the hokey-cokey doing it. But in this instance, this is just a tragedy. And it will be telling to see what it does, because this will affect players. They played with this kid, this young man. They were his friends. Yeah. And of course, you build teams in football very different to you build in any other industry. Every sport, every industry has its team mentality, but football has a different feel about it. Sport has a different feel about it than commerce, because it's all predicated upon emotion. You work in a bank, you work in a team. If someone was in that team and something tragically happened to them, you'd have a very difficult reaction. But sport is seeded in emotion, otherwise you wouldn't have grown men cheering for 17-year-old kids, would you? And living and dying and breathing and eating football, every aspect of it. So it's fraught with emotion. It's about how you channel that emotion. And the most important thing is you do it. And Liverpool do this themselves. They look after themselves very, they're very strong about how they feel about the tragedies that have happened to this football club, and rightly so. And I suspect it'll be channeled in the most respectful and valuable way, bearing in mind that the real loss is for the family of Diogo Jota.
Indeed. Liverpool also stopped both games in the 20th minute as well to applaud Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, and you wonder if that's going to continue. They applaud anyway and continue the games in the 20th minute.
The fragility of life is the big lesson, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, we all walk around in life worried about things that happen to us or things that might happen to us, and the most important lesson you can learn in life, without being too much of a soothsayer, is live in the moment. Enjoy every aspect of the moment that you're in.
Yeah,
easier said than done, I know.
A lot easier said than done, but you are correct. A player that's enjoying every moment at the moment is 16-year-old Rio Ungamoa, who looks absolutely fantastic for Liverpool. And there's almost a space opened up now on that left-hand side since Luis Diaz has gone. And you wonder, look, we were talking about Max Dowman, weren't we? Yeah. Will he force his way into Arteta's thinking for the season? And I wonder if this Rio Ungamoa has now almost done that to Arne Slot, where he's like, okay, look, give me a chance. He's taken the chance. Yeah. All of a sudden, will he be a fixture in the squad going forward?
Well, they give you an option, and it's always that age-old thing about how young players tend to go on roller coasters. They go up and down, their form dips because they are young players. That's the orthodoxy. And the mentality that David Moyes deployed to handle Wayne Rooney would have frustrated Wayne Rooney at times and might have exacerbated the departure. But Man United were calling at the time, and Man United were the big club in English football. It's also very important that a young player comes into an environment with a senior pros of a calibre and standard, because young players coming into a first team with senior pros that aren't at the level, don't have the understanding of their responsibilities, an example they can set, can be as damaging as it can be uplifting for a player that's young going into a squad of top players. Liverpool have got top players. Yeah. Do I think, I mean, obviously we've got the constant example of Lamine Yamal as the blueprint of how he's good enough. He's old enough, whatever age he's at, he's in this side. And there may well be but I would imagine that the Dowmans of the world, who's 15, and this other kid at Liverpool will find their way to being giving their head. And of course, Liverpool have got Premier Leagues to win, European Cups to win, competitions to play in, and he'll get some game time. But I would be very surprised that if they find themselves as a ever-present dominant force at this stage, who knows? I mean, but we are seeing, and the great thing about it is that we're seeing more talent, younger talent coming through of real technical ability. And this is the next generation of footballers. And I think it's a lot to do with the way the academies are set up now. It's a lot to do with the different influences in academies, the technical abilities that players. I remember when I bought Palace, and the big thing that I got to listen to was academy directors talking to me about a child's life is like an open book. Each day you write a new page on it. What a load of old fanny. You prepare these players to be professional footballers. It's a difficult place to be in. But also, you don't want jugglers.
Yeah.
And you want players that can play, but also have the technical ability. And you're seeing it come through now. And I think there's a lot to do with overseas influence, because the technical ability of players now, what they can do and how they can move
from
completely different.
15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Different.
Absolutely.
We'll see what England.
Even though I remember doing an upfront with Michael Owen, who said to me at the time, the players of his era are better.
Technically.
Yeah, absolutely. Better
Yes.
then than they were.
Because he thinks they're athletes now. I think he said they're athletes now.
Yeah.
They're not as skillful. And he's got an argument there.
Maybe.
An argument.
Maybe. I mean, his was a unique position, and he was a very diminutive forward, isn't he? But look at some of the players that are coming through and the technical ability that they've got. I mean, look at the players we're looking at. Saka at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Dalman. These are not athletes. These are players that have athletic prowess, but have great technical ability.
Agreed. Elise, who's gone on to do incredible things at Bayern Munich.
Absolutely.
This Benjamin Sesko thing, and we're going to speak to Alex Crook a bit later in the show, seems to have... It's coming to a conclusion, I think it's fair to say. Newcastle have made a bid for Benjamin Sesko, we believe, in the region of 80 million euros, with 10 million euros add-on. RB Leipzig are happy with it. Benjamin Sesko yet has to decide where he wants to go. It's a shootout between Newcastle and Manchester United.
Yeah.
If you are Sesko, you're 22 years of age, you're looking at both projects. What's the better project for you?
Newcastle. I think, because Newcastle comes with expectation, but doesn't come with the same pressure that Man United comes from. Whilst people focus on Newcastle, and they focus on it because Newcastle makes a lot of noise, because it's a very passionate football club and the fans are very motivated by it, it doesn't have the day-to-day scrutiny that Man United has. It doesn't matter what happens. You can fart in the corridor of Man United and it's heard around the world. It's not the same at Newcastle.
It's a very interesting analogy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean in terms of what people focusing and really dialing into what happens at Man United. You've got Ruben Amorim that's presiding over a 12-year decline of Manchester United and trying to, and ocean liners don't turn fast, he's trying to correct it, and I think he's making lots of missteps, but then we probably all would if we were in his shoes. Whereas Newcastle, despite the frustrations around ESIC, despite the frustrations of people perhaps using it as a stepping stone club, and they might not like to hear that, but it is a reality. I don't think you lose very much by going to Newcastle. You go there, you're playing on a side that's ambitious, but is a step below the radar. You go and perform at a high level. The opportunity comes again, and it might come at a different stage in Man United's evolution. If I'm a centre forward that can get past the notion that going up to the northeast of England isn't as appealing as going to Manchester, and by the way, Newcastle is a beautiful town, and this idea that this north-south divide and everybody up in the north doesn't have an understanding of culture and sophistication is rubbish. It's a brilliant town. Yeah. So if I were in his shoes, if the economics of the deal were that I wasn't being compromised financially by going to Newcastle over Manchester United, I think it's a great move. I think Eddie Howe, is a brilliant manager. I had my reservations about him in the past. I've had conversations with Eddie. I like him very much, and I think he's done a brilliant job. And I think that the opportunity to go to Newcastle at this stage in Newcastle's evolution, and there's so many things afoot. We're going to talk about the transfer system perhaps being broken down. PSR's getting a buck coach and horses driven through it. Who knows what will happen in the next 12 months as to what Newcastle might be able to do, because we know that if Newcastle are let off the reins, there's no restrictions upon how much finances they can bring to bear if they choose to. So I would be looking at Newcastle rather than Man United, and Man United fans can
Why
deal
is
with
he
that.
stalling? If you're Sesko, why?
Because
if you're Newcastle, you're like, make up your mind. Do you want to come to us on that? Why are you stalling?
Because the agents are in the mix of it. There's only one thing worse than no choice, is having too much choice. Yeah. And sometimes, teams get picked and they're down to the bare bones, and actually they perform better than having too much choice. In this instance, it's a career move. It's a life decision. He's probably finding himself in a situation where there's lots of different voices in his ear with lots of different reasons for being there. And there is always the lustre of Man United, irrespective of whatever toxicity exists around the perceived position of Man United. And it's not perceived. They finished in the bottom 5 of the table last year and stunk it out periodically and repeatedly. And so whilst you've got this in your ear, it's Man United, Man United, Man United. On the other side of the equation, the reality of Man United is this isn't Man United that once upon a time occupied this top table. This isn't Man United that's finding its way to get anywhere near getting some of the crumbs off the top table.
Indeed. All right, you're listening to Oladipo and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. Newcastle and Manchester United fans, we want to hear from you. Who should Benjamin Sesko go to? Phone lines are open right now, 03717 22 33 44. Good morning, you're listening to Oladipo and Jordan here on talkSPORT until 1 o'clock. Stephen Borston's going to join us a bit later as well, financial football expert. Loads to talk about with him, including Crystal Palace and their situation with UEFA. We'll talk about this new FIFA, or this new judgment against FIFA, which could allow players to leave for free and terminate their contracts, which still is mind-boggling, and Simon's been trying to educate me during the break. We'll talk about that in about half an hour. What we're talking about now, though, is Benjamin Sesko and where the RB Leipzig forward will go to. Will it be Manchester United or will it be Newcastle? We are taking your phone calls on this one as well, 03717 223344. Before we go to the phone lines, let's hear from our European football expert, Kevin Hatchard, who has a lowdown on what Benjamin Sesko is like as a player.
At 22, Benjamin Sesko is still a developing player, no doubt about that, but he scored plenty of goals last season for a poor RB Leipzig team, not just in the Bundesliga, but also in the Champions League. And I think the thing that attracts clubs to Sesko is his physical gifts. He's tall, he's quick, and he has great technique. He strikes the ball beautifully. This isn't the finished product, but it's somebody who has enormous potential and has already played plenty of international football with Slovenia as well.
Kevin Hatchard there, a European football expert. The texts are coming in as well. Remember, you can text us 81089. This one's coming from Dan. Question to you, Simon. Morning, gents. Question, please. Does the modern footballer look at social media footprint when choosing a destination, i.e. Newcastle versus Manchester United?
You ask them. I would think so. I mean, we heard Man United come on here. Man United talking about how they build and bend their social media representations and how they encourage players to think a certain way and saying certain things in press conferences based upon what they've seen trend on social media.
It's crazy. That is crazy.
Who doesn't grown-ups don't, but who doesn't look at social media and form some degree of opinion upon something based upon social media? All that social media are doing is filling the gap that traditional media once did, and what mainstream media are doing now is colouring in the picture a little bit. Social media creates the narrative, creates the talking points, does some of the research and creates the conspiracy theories. And then traditional media comes along and colours in the picture. But I would imagine, absolutely, footballers, they spend how many times have we been told by incumbent managers or people involved in the game currently that they are telling footballers not to look at their phones, not to come off at half-time or at the end of a game, read what people have said about them? How many times are we hearing people being aware of unpleasant and discriminatory things being said? And reacting to it. We've just seen an example of it with Jess Carter in the Women's Euros, that they're seeing this kind of content. So, of course, they're going to be privy to it, both good and bad. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Phone lines open right now, 03717 223344. We are talking RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko and where he should go. Let's go to Jack, Manchester United fan. Jack, obviously, you're going to say he should come to your club, but why?
I don't think United needs Sesko right now. Sorry, lads. How are you guys? I hope you're okay.
We're good. You said you don't think United need him?
No, I don't think United need Sesko at the moment, at this time of the project with Ruben Amorim, especially with the two players they just bought in with Cunha and Mbeumo. I think they need a Premier League striker with them, like Watkins, like that we were going for, or Mateta, and something to just steady the ship, get you in Champions League spots for the next few years, and then you can go for a proven striker if you ever make it back again, as you said before we went on a break, back to where Man United was, or at least around the top four. But
I couldn't agree more. I think there are proven Premier League strikers that we know score goals in the Premier League that I think would fit in with United straight away. I'm shocked that no one's actually even put Mateta in the conversation at Crystal. I think he's done a great job. Ollie Watkins, we know, has done a good job as well for Aston Villa. Why always the big thing to go and look abroad when you do have proven Premier League strikers who will cost a lot cheaper than 80 million euros?
With due respect, it's one thing playing for Crystal Palace and hitting a great run of form, which he has done for about a year now. Prior to that, he wasn't as prolific. He was struggling, and maybe just the component parts of the team were different. And you would have felt with people like Wilfried Zaha on the side, he might have scored more goals. But the fact is he didn't, and he's become far more compelling in the last 12 months. As a result of his relationship with Glasner. You can make the argument, if Man United, if you were saying to this fellow on the call now, would you sign Isak? I bet you'd say yes, because but he wasn't a proven Premier League striker 3 years ago. He landed straight in Newcastle's side and hit the ground running. So this kid may well do the same. Man United need a striker. Clearly, I mean, we've had discussions about Man United and talking about the argument that Neil Warnock brought into the studio about 3 or 4 weeks ago, is that he feels that Amorim should build from the back. And then Sam Matterface was pulling stats out of his backside, left, right and centre, as he does, about the fact that Man United don't concede goals. They can't score goals. Man United's problem is they can't score goals, and clearly Rasmus Højlund, has got a 50p head. You're not going to get much from him. That die's being cast.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah.
And and unless there's going to be some miraculous sea change in what Højlund does, he isn't going to be the answer. So bringing somebody in just because he's, the age-old expression, a foreign player. If you had a plethora of centre forwards in the Premier League that were of a high quality, and Watkins is all right. I like Ollie Watkins. He's a good player. He played well for Brentford. I liked him at Brentford. I think he's a decent player. He's had a couple of swipes at me, but tongue-in-cheek swipes about the fact that I didn't think he was going to be a problem for Arsenal when Aston Villa played against him last year and he went up there and scored. He took great delight in rubbing my face in it, and fair play to him. And I like him a lot. But I think there's a vast difference between even an Aston Villa and Man United, because Aston Villa, whilst a big football club and one I admired, and I used to get on very well with Doug Ellis back in the day when he was the chairman and owner of Aston Villa, I still think that Man United would benefit from somebody that's a very energetic and progressive striker rather than somebody that's at a certain level already. I understand the argument, though. Again, texts are flying in here. This one's coming from Lee. Sesko should just look at the recent history of players signed by each club and their development. Isak, Hall, Livramento, Hype have all improved their game and status. Mount, Garnacho, Sancho, all struggling to find somebody to buy them. Interesting. Let's go to Sam, Newcastle fan. Sam, look, it looks like Isak is going. Sesko could be the man to replace him. Why hasn't he chosen you as yet? You put a bid in. What's the hold up, do you think?
Well, I certainly think that the hanging off the coattails of Manchester United's past success looks very tempting for international players, and I really do understand that. But you've only got to look at the statements from the players that have suddenly left Manchester to understand what's going on at the club. It's in the news, it's in the tabloids, it's all over, and not to mention their league position last season. Newcastle United, we want to talk about the project, the exciting project that they had, but that, even for me as a Newcastle fan, has gone off the boil a bit. But if we boil it down to the facts, Eddie has a great reputation for improving players, getting them into international squads, and I'm sure we'll talk about it anyway, but look at what we've done for Isak. You know, we took a chance on him a lot in a very, very similar situation to Sesko. We took a chance on him, and look where he is now, the best striker arguably in the world currently, looking to go for record bids.
Yeah, look, Newcastle fans would be upset with the Isak situation, and rightly so. Who wants to lose their best players? But ultimately, you could end the transfer window with Sesko and Visser up front. I mean, look, you still want to keep Isak, obviously, but it's not bad replacements to get a man in Visser who scored, 19 goals for Brentford, and Sesko, everyone's talking about as one of the best strikers in the world.
Yeah, well, listen, for me, Sesko, he's very young, 22-year-old player, great sort of physicality and pacing, technical ability. Given what Eddie's done with players already, there's certainly a greater ceiling to be reached with him, and improvements that I think we could make and certainly give him those opportunities. Plus, we've got Champions League this season, which is another great pull for the club. So I think he would obviously be biased, but I think he will be better off at the project at Newcastle United. Do you know what, this transfer window has been a nightmare for Newcastle fans. You know, we heard statements from Eddie. He wanted to get out of the gates early, get players in, get them in for pre-season. That hasn't happened. We're on skeleton staff at the moment. 2 directors of football have gone. Our CEO, God bless him, is very, very ill. We're just starting to hear about those replacements coming in now. So our recruitment has been one deal at a time. We've heard that directly from the club. So we're getting to a point now where we just need to throw the yen at people, get players in, and get cracking with the next season.
Sam, great call. Thank you very much. Newcastle fans excited about what could happen in the next couple of weeks at their club. All right, 2 have become free in the studio with some breaking news, and our reporter Nick Ellaby has joined us. Nick?
Good morning, Ade. We've had an update on Thomas Partey. He's appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court this morning. He's been charged with 5 counts of rape and 1 of sexual assault. He's now been granted conditional bail, so he doesn't have to be detained. But there are conditions on that. We don't know exactly what those conditions are. I'll bring you that in my bulletin or as soon as I can here. We know that the now former Arsenal midfielder was charged with the offences which took place between 2021 and 2022 when he was an Arsenal player. He appeared in court today in a black zip neck jumper, walked quickly past the journalists, and his lawyer has previously said he denies all the charges against him, and Thomas Partey welcomes the opportunity to finally clear his name. So that breaking news is that Thomas Partey has been granted conditional bail and charged with 5 counts of rape, 1 of sexual assault. He denies those charges, and he'll have to then reappear at a Crown Court at a later date.
Thanks, Nick. More on this throughout the morning during our bulletins. This is talkSPORT. When we come back, Alex Crook, our chief football correspondent, will join us.
Who doesn't love the Ryder Cup, the competition that ignites and unites the greats of golf like no other? 1927 brought us the very first edition at the Worcester Country Club in Massachusetts. For the first 22 editions, when it was just British and Irish golfers versus the US, America were only beaten 3 times. But in 1979, in came Europe, and in came Seve Ballesteros, who went on to win 5 of them. Since Team Europe became a thing, the head-to-head reads Europe 13, USA 9. Europe's last away win was the miracle at Medina in 2012. America hasn't won on European soil since 1993 at the Belfry. So what about the money? The most recent Ryder Cup in Rome drew in a record 271,000 spectators and boosted the Italian economy by 262 million euros. The PGA of America TV deal with NBC is worth $440 million, but 2025 will be the first time ever that the US team will receive a fee for playing. Of course, in Rome, legend has it Patrick Cantley refused to wear his cap because he wasn't being paid to wear it, though he insisted it simply didn't fit. Either way, Team Europe have made it clear they're more than happy to keep playing for the thrill, joy and prestige of the Ryder Cup.
Good morning, you're listening to Ade Oladipo and Simon Jordan. Dolph Seagar is going to join us in about 15 minutes. He's a Justice for Players board member. There is an ongoing radical legal case which could let players terminate their own contracts for free. Can't wait to hear what he has to say about that and Simon's reaction to it. But let's welcome in our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, with the latest transfer news. Alex, let's start straight away on this Benjamin Sesko situation. We have been taking calls and texts about it. Is he picking United or is he picking Newcastle? Both fans are nervous about what's going to happen in the next 24, 48 hours.
Well, I think that's still the £70 million question, Addy, to be honest. We know that Newcastle have gone back with a fresh offer now worth a guaranteed £70 million up front plus add-ons. I think RB Leipzig are inclined to accept that offer as it meets their valuation, but they're still just holding firm at the moment in case Manchester United come in with a rival bid. The suggestion in Germany has always been that Šeško potentially would favour a move to Old Trafford, but I think this is maybe a difficult one for Manchester United to do. They've already spent over £120 million on Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. Of the so-called infamous 5 members of the bomb squad, only Marcus Rashford has gone so far and only out on loan, no loan fees. They've saved his wages, but there's no money coming in for that deal. I think Alejandro Garnacho will go between now and the end of the window. Chelsea waiting in the wings, but again, I'm not sure they're in any desperate hurry to pay a hefty transfer fee. The same with Jadon Sancho. I know it's been talked about in terms of Juventus and Borussia Dortmund. So I don't see where United are going to get the money to match this offer. Having said that, never say never. They've pulled it out of the bag before, but I do think we will know definitively, probably by the close of play today, if not early tomorrow, when Eddie Howe and the rest of his Newcastle squad who've been away in the Far East return for training.
Yeah, I can't wait to see them return to training because we know that Alexander Isak has returned to training. We saw him pull him yesterday with his lovely little G-Wagon, which I thought was quite nice. I'm a big fan of the G-Wagons. What's the latest situation with Alexander Isak? Is there any way in which Eddie Howe can convince him to stay, or is it just a case of if Benjamin Sesko joins the Geordies, then it's a clear case of Alexander Isak joining Liverpool?
That looks the most likely outcome. I know there have been suggestions that Eddie Howe will sit down with his star striker and make another attempt to persuade him to commit his future. But unless they're going to put a £300,000 a week contract on the table, I don't see that's a battle that Eddie Howe can win. I think he is reluctantly coming round to that way of thinking as well. And as you said, Šeško would be a replacement for Isak. Liverpool have made one offer. They're going to bide their time before coming in with a second bid. And I think that will only happen if this Šeško deal does get over the line. I think if Šeško turns down Newcastle, then it will be difficult to sanction the move away for Alexander Isak. But if he signs, then I would expect Isak to end up at Liverpool. And that looks a pretty formidable front line that the champions are assembling by way of defending their title.
We spoke about this yesterday, didn't we? We've been speaking about it at length for ages now, but it does seem to be this domino effect. If one happens, all the others will happen, which could mean Ollie Watkins going United, it could mean Šeško going Newcastle.
Yeah.
Alexander Isak.
Yeah, it could do. I mean, there's this indication, and I think it's more to do with the smokescreen, that if Isak was offered £300,000 a week at Newcastle, that he'd potentially consider it. He'll leave Newcastle.
He's decided what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a case of, well, it's half the club's fault. It may well be half the club's fault that they didn't tie him down for 20 years rather than the 3 years they've got left on his contract. The market has dictated certain things, and whether Newcastle could and should have paid the money, I still think when Liverpool came knocking, there was an element of irrelevance about what Newcastle were prepared to pay. The only relevant conversation now is what Newcastle are prepared to sell Isak for, and Liverpool meeting it, or Newcastle getting on with the reality of Isak having to accept his lot. And I keep saying it, and I don't care how many abusive, nasty, offensive messages Liverpool fans want to put up on social media, they should pay the price that Newcastle want. He's their player. They're the ones that went and found him. They're the ones that took the punt on him. They're the ones that developed the opportunity. So if Liverpool want to come knocking on his door and unsettling a player, which they have done, then they should pay the price. And I hope Newcastle make them pay the price.
Crookie, what is that price? Liverpool got a bit of 110 million rejected, right? It's almost a bounce back email. That wasn't enough to get through the front door. What is the price for Alexander Isak? Is it, as Simon said, 150? Is it 130? What's the fee here, do you think?
Well, that's the dream number as far as Newcastle are concerned, £150 million. But I can say with some confidence, I don't think Liverpool will get near that number. I actually don't think the bid that's been rejected was too far away from what they think Newcastle will eventually accept. It will be a British record fee. I'm pretty sure about that. So it will eclipse what Liverpool have already paid this summer for Florian Wirtz. But when you've got a player who is pushing for the move, obviously it does weaken your bargaining position. And again, I said on breakfast this morning, there's a misconception that this is a situation that really is only reared its head in the last 3 weeks or so. I wrote in March that Liverpool would go big for Alexander Isak this summer. If I knew that, Newcastle would have known that as well. And I think actually you go right back to the start of last season when Paul Mitchell, by all accounts, reneged on a promise that was made previously by the likes of Amanda Staveley to give Alexander Isak a new contract. I think he's been hankering for a move ever since then.
One thing Isak hasn't done is handed in a transfer request. I know there'll be some.
Well, he won't do that.
He's kind of done it, hasn't he, really, by not going on tour. He's gone to Real Sociedad. Are we getting to that stage where he tries to really force it through in the next couple of weeks, where he hands in a transfer request?
Well, that's quite a dramatic step for a player to take, as I'm sure Simon, having been on the other end when he's been in charge of a football club, would testify, because once you formally submit a transfer request, it does hit you financially in terms of bonuses and loyalty payments. That's why it doesn't happen very often.
Do you think he could do that? Are we getting to the stage where he wants to?
I don't think it's as controversial as people think it is. If you want to leave, then you can't ultimately get the traction that you want, put yourself in some skin in the game. It's not all a one-way transaction. You've got 3 years left on your contract. What you really should be doing is doing what Newcastle want you to do, which is honour your contract. Because Newcastle aren't hankering to sell this player. They're not sitting there saying, we must sell the player because we need the money and we've got PSR compliance. So they're only reacting to the circumstances of a player that's got 3 years left on his contract. Most people would be saying, hang on a second, Newcastle have done... And I think all this crap that I have to listen to about what players think they've agreed with people and what they've said, it's a smokescreen to get around the situation that they're engineering for themselves. I don't think Paul Mitchell, whatever you think of Paul Mitchell, I don't think he's stupid. I don't think he doesn't understand the marketplace that he's in. He might not have been the perfect fit for Newcastle, but you've got Alexander Isak, and all you keep hearing now from players is, my understanding of this, my understanding of that, my understanding of this. Well, what is your understanding? I'll tell you what your understanding is what you've bloody signed. That's your understanding. And if you haven't got anything else, and they keep on doing it because it's another way of suggesting that they get out from the responsibility of their own attitude and their own outlook. Like the idea, going back to what Alex is talking about the salary at Newcastle. It doesn't matter if Newcastle offered him 300 grand a week. He still wouldn't sign for them if Liverpool come and buy him. And that's an unfair characterisation because it gets players out from underneath of their own behaviour. It becomes, well, Newcastle didn't do their job. Paul Mitchell reneged on an agreement. This person didn't do that. Amanda Staveley didn't do this, or Amanda Staveley did do that. And there's never any real, it's all supposition, and it creates an excuse culture for the real criminals in this instance, which are the player and his agent. The player's entitled to leave. If he wants to leave, then he might have to give up some of the loyalty bonuses and some of the consequences of putting in a transfer request. So what? Yeah, you can't have it always, can you? Surely you can't.
Yeah, if you want out, you're going to have to face the consequences of wanting
Surely.
Out. Yeah. Away from Newcastle and Liverpool and United, let's talk Everton very quickly, Crookie. We were here the other week when David Moyes, I keep calling him David Moyes was bemoaning the fact that he had done anything or nothing in the transfer window. It looks like Everton are on the verge of agreeing a fee with Chelsea for 25 million for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who's not really done much at Chelsea. Good signing, though, for Everton.
I think so. I think it was the wrong move for Dewsbury-Hall last summer. He actually went as far as having a medical at Brighton before Chelsea came in and hijacked the deal. And I wonder if he had his time again, would he maybe make a different decision, because he never really got a look in at Chelsea, not in Premier League terms anyway. So, yeah, we expect this deal to go through. Everton also still in talks with Southampton about their teenage midfielder, Tyler Dibbling. And these Jack Grealish whispers about maybe taking him on loan aren't going away either. So I think it's going to be quite an active end of the window for Everton, as you say, on the back of David Moyes voicing his frustration.
I thought he was going to call him David as well there, just to...
He needs a striker, doesn't he?
Skin. Yeah.
Doesn't he need a striker?
He desperately needs a striker.
Well, they've signed Tierno Barry from Villarreal, and they're quite excited about him. But, yeah, they do look a little bit short in that department. Although I've got to say, Iliman Ndiaye, keep an eye on him this season. I thought he was excellent in the friendly against Manchester United in the States on Sunday night.
Right, we're always told that we don't talk about transfers in the Championship. We're going to do one right now. What's the latest with Chuba Akpom?
Well, this is absolutely sensational.
Yeah, this is bonkers,
this story, because it's taken so many U-turns over the course of the past 72 hours or so. Originally, he was off to Birmingham City. They'd agreed a loan fee with a £7 million obligation if they were promoted. A medical was booked to take place yesterday. Then his old club Middlesbrough came in to try and hijack the deal. He turned down a return to the Riverside. Still, the Birmingham medical was booked. Then, Monday morning, Ipswich match Birmingham bids. He diverts to Suffolk. He undergoes a medical at Ipswich. He's passed that medical. Birmingham have now come back to the negotiating table, and they've offered to sign him permanently this summer. So not a loan deal. I'm told Ajax actually would like to accept that proposal, but it's up to the player if he decides to push on with this Ipswich move or makes yet another U-turn. An absolutely extraordinary story, and it's made all the more fascinating by the fact Ipswich against Birmingham is our Championship opener live on talkSPORT on Friday.
There you go. Look at that plug as well from our chief football correspondent, Alex Cook. Alex, final one, Fabio Silva. Now, I saw the name pop up on my screen. I was like, this can't be the same Fabio Silva who was signed by Wolves many moons ago for an inflated price. Dortmund want him.
Again, this caught me by surprise when I got confirmation this morning. Wolves paid a club record £35 million fee for Silva when he was just a teenager. He's only scored 4 Premier League goals. In fact, in the last few seasons, he played more games out on loan for the likes of Rangers and Las Palmas than he has for Wolves. But that isn't deterring Borussia Dortmund. He is a target, I'm told, and Wolves willing to do business for around £22 million. If they can get this one over the line, well, I think they're geniuses when you look at his form.
Cheers, Crookie. You're going to be a very busy man in the next few weeks. Our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, there with the latest. All right, you're listening to Oladipo and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out these month's real deals at selcobw.com. Up next, we're going to be joined by Delph Seagar from the Players for Justice group, which is looking to allow players to terminate their own contracts for free. Good morning, Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan. We are going to talk to Dolph Seagar, Justice for Players board member. This could be the biggest ruling since the Bosman ruling back in 1995. There's a radical legal case. It's ongoing at the moment, which could let players terminate their own contracts for free. This stems from Lassana Diarra situation. That went to a ruling in 2024. It was a case brought by the former midfielder who was ordered to pay 10 million by FIFA for leaving Lokomotiv Moscow.
I mean, I understand his principles because ultimately the club in itself created the problem because they decided for whatever reason that they didn't like the player that they'd signed and they didn't like his behaviour or whatever they didn't like about him. They felt they could enforce upon him a wage cut, which he didn't want to take, and then they could enforce upon him an ostracisation of him from the football institute side of things. So he effectively decided to terminate his contract himself, breach his contract, which then brought out a whole series of consequences of the transfer system now being put under pressure by the reality. And there is an element of, well, there is actually some common sense behind it. As much as I don't like the unions getting involved and seeing what opportunities they can create for themselves, I'd look at it and say, what has a transfer fee really got to do with the player? And the transfer fee in and of itself...
That's club between club.
That's club between club. And there's the challenge now, because the player themselves, if this governance and this ruling now becomes de rigueur in sport and the constant theme, then transfer fees are not going to be worth the paper they're written on. Players can terminate contracts by walking out of them and perhaps only having to pay the compensation value of the contract that they were signed to, i.e. pay back to the clubs what the clubs are about to pay them as some form of compensation. But in the meantime, they can't have their registration held. And FIFA, which means they can go and sign for another football club. Currently, before this ruling, which was ultimately upheld by the original judgment was upheld, FIFA supported the football club, levied a transaction against the player for €10.5 million of compensation or payment back to the football club. He then challenged it. Court of Arbitration of Sport upheld FIFA, and then it got challenged again. And now what you've now got is a situation where, for me, the great thing about this is a series of unintended consequences. I loathe transfer deadline day. I loathe the whole transfer market conundrum of for the media circus that it becomes. So if it dismantles the transfer market, I'll never have to listen to Alex Crook or anyone else talking about transfers during the course of August and January, because it burns my backside having to listen to it anyway. But on the serious side of things, what it does now is it creates a real challenge for the transfer market, because you buy a player for 50 million quid, and he decides 6 months in he doesn't like the coach, or he's got some mental anxiety as a result of being at a football club he don't like, he can walk out, his registration cannot be held, he can then go to another football club, he can be sued. In order for the club to get something back from them, they've got to sue him, the club that bought him, and potentially he'll go to another football club that'll just beef up his salary, and he'll pay any compensation which is indexed to his contract back to the football club that originally paid 50 million quid for him.
Player power, it's best, I think it's fair to say, or some might say it's worse. Let's welcome in Dolph Seagar, Justice for Players board member. Dolph, I don't know if you've been listening to the little 5-minute conversation that me and Simon have had with regards to this, but let's get straight to the meat of this. Why is it happening? And how important is it for players that something like this does go through?
This is happening because of the decision of the European Court in October last year, where it was said that that the FIFA rules were against European law. And the European Court as well mentioned that the players were harmed because of those rules. So that's the basis for this claim against FIFA and the national federations. Yes, we believe that this is indeed, because of the decision of the European Court, a strong case to succeed.
Okay, so just my very basic understanding of this then. So players now, we've seen players in recent situations, Alexander Isak, Sesko, Gyökeres trying to force transfers through. Players won't have to do that then in the future. If a ruling like this were to happen, players simply don't have to do that. Their contracts will be terminated for free.
Yeah, I saw this headline that you have your players to terminate contracts for free, but that's of course not the case. Even under these rules of FIFA and the changing rules of FIFA also in the future, you have a contract. And if you terminate unlawfully your contract, then you will be liable for the damage of your employer. So a player cannot leave for free. He can terminate his contract perhaps, but the club can try to maintain the player to comply with his contract. But if he does not, then he needs to pay a certain penalty. The change of the rules now means that his new employer will not become liable for that damage that he has to pay to his former club, but he still has to pay a certain amount of money.
Okay.
But what it does do, though, isn't it? It does separate the transfer fee from the contractual obligations that the player may have. What you've got now, the sequence of events likely to happen is if a player walks out of his contract, the registration is no longer held up. So FIFA governance has been overturned. So the registration, he can go and register for another football club. The club that had him and bought him and paid for him has to sue the player for what they perceive to be the damages. But it's really a separation of the contractual obligation that the player has to the club and the club has to the player from the transfer fee that the club paid for him in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. But the question is, of course, if you have a player that is easily leaving your club, in the past, his history is that he leaves his employer. As a new club, are you happy to contact such a player because you invest in a player? You want him to maintain the contract and to comply with his obligations. And if he leaves easily, well, I would say as a player, be careful that might be a certain moment in time that a new club do not want to.
But I hear that argument as well. But the bigger deterrent would be for the football club if they had to pay for him in the first place. So if you accept that a player has got a history of potentially being easy to leave clubs when it doesn't suit him, you wouldn't pay for a transfer fee. Now, if in the instance of a situation where a player has walked out of a football club for whatever reason, justified or unjustified, and gone to another football club and that football club hasn't paid anything for him, their barrier to entry about being concerned about what he may do to them is going to be less, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you can solve this by entering into the contract a certain buyout clause, like Spain has done in the Neymar case or in other for other players. If you have a high buyout fee, if a player then tries to leave the contract, then he has to pay this buyout fee anyway.
Do you think that will stand up legally? Because I was thinking that would be the solution as well. That there'd be like the release clauses that are now in place that are designed to protect the club from being lowballed from a buying club and potentially allow a player not to be held a hostage if he doesn't want to stay at a club with a release clause. Would it be a contract that would be enforceable with buyout clauses? Because I think that would be challenged as well, because they'd say a contract for employment services is very different from a commercial value of a transaction.
Yeah, no, I agree. Of course, that should be in a certain level playing field between club and player. But you need, of course, to safeguard the discussion that we have to avoid that the player is leaving for free, so to speak. So if you agree, so that it is an agreement between two parties, which in itself would be compliant with the law. If the fee is negotiated in good faith, then of course you can comply.
See, I don't think that's right. I think that will be easily challenged and overcomable. I think the necessary consequence of this is the transfer marketplace becomes very much compromised, which is okay if you're not a selling club. If you're one of these smaller clubs in the pyramid of whichever league you're in that survives on selling players, then that's a challenge for you. If you're a club that doesn't sell and doesn't tend to make profits on transfers, Tottenham and Arsenal in London, England, don't tend to make profit on transfers, it won't affect them very much. So I think this is a potential unwinding of the transfer system in terms of player values.
No, I agree. It will certainly has a certain effect on the transfer market. Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm not sure yet what the outcome will be, how the FIFA and the players and the clubs will negotiate on a new system, and it will certainly has a certain effect. But yeah, I do not believe that the transfer system will be overturned at all.
Dolph, very quickly, this class action, so the seeking compensation that could total billions of pounds from FIFA and the FAs of France, Germany, etc., etc. How far down the line are you with that?
Well, we have started with sending letters to FIFA and all the federations involved, the European federations, including the 4 UK federations. And we hope that we will be able to have a discussion with FIFA on short term on this claim. And if we do not settle before, then we will have to go to court.
The Bosman ruling was obviously groundbreaking back in 1995, I think it was. Is this on the same level? Is this the same sort of seismic shift in football as that was?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it is, because it has a huge impact on the transfer rules. So that's more or less the same as Bosman did. He overturned the transfer rules as well, and this matter of the era will change the transfer rules as well.
And finally, and Simon, you can chime in here as well. When likely are we to get an outcome of this? Like if this does sort of come into force, what date are we thinking?
You mean the court case?
Yes.
Yes, well, it depends very much whether or not we will reach a settlement. And if not, then it will go to court, and that will take some years. So it's not finalized on short term, no.
Good or bad for football, Simon?
A bit of both. I mean, they're not going to reach a settlement. There's no ambulance chasing about this, and they're going to push the envelope, but they're not going to reach a settlement. And there will be a lot of horse trading, a lot of negotiations, so it will take some time. But it is absolutely a seismic moment in football. As big as Bosman, as challenging as Bosman has become, and there needs to be some balance in it. FIFA will try and negotiate their way through. I think FIFA being challenged is a good thing. Whether this ultimate thing is a good thing, I don't know. Football needs to think differently than it has thought for years. That's why you've got big ownership models challenging the governance of the game, APT transactions in football with Man City's ownership, and this is all about the evolution of sport and what's happening with it.
Can't wait to hear Stefan Borson's take on this. Stefan Borson's going to join us after the break. Dolph Seeger, really appreciate you coming on. Justice for Players board member. Next, as I just chimed in, said it there, our football expert Stefan Borson will join us in the studio.
What football ground are you thinking of when someone says this?
Really tough place to go. Difficult place to go. Such a tough place to go.
It's a tough place to go at the moment.
It was a really difficult place to go, always.
But what are the toughest places to go, really? We've scoured the planet to find out. Forget a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke. Try playing in a blizzard 220 miles inside the Arctic Circle at the world's northernmost professional club. When Chelsea lost at Tromsø in Norway in the 97-98 Cup Winners' Cup, a massive snowstorm hit at half-time. These two boys and their brooms were absolutely no match for it. We're staying in Scandinavia for Scotland's toughest away day on a windswept cliff in the Faroe Islands. In Euro 2000 qualifying, Craig Brown's men were taken to fishing village Toftir. Kevin Gallagher called the pitch a cowfield and the wind like Pittodrie on a bad day. The Faroe Islands part-timers equalised in stoppage time, leading to these absolute scenes, and still one of Scotland's most embarrassing results.
Daft little ground, silly game.
But away trips don't come any tougher than a lung-busting schlep up the Andes to face Bolivia in La Paz. But now the Bolivians have taken home advantage to another level. The country's highest city, El Alto, 4,100 metres above sea level. Grass doesn't even grow up here. Bolivia have not lost here yet. The longest unbeaten run in any professional league ever belongs to Red Star Belgrade, or Crvena Zvezda if you must. They've gone 7 years without defeat at the Rajko Mitic in Serbia's Superliga. Their fans are pretty intimidating as well, but they're not as loud as this mob. Galatasaray's Ali Sami Yen Stadium's officially the loudest in world football. In a derby with Fenerbahce, Galatasaray fans set a Guinness World Record of 131 decibels. That's louder than Motorhead, and pretty tough to carry out your manager's instructions when you can't even hear them. However, our most intimidating away day is in Wales, where cameras can't enter and players can't leave. HMP Prescoed. This prison team was briefly kicked out the Gwent League over concerns about young opposition having to go in there. Now that's a tough place to go.
Early June 1939, Germany, always a tough place to go to.
Good morning, this is Simon Jordan, Ade Oladipo and Stefan Borson, football finance expert, is in the studio with us. We are still trying to get to the bottom of this Morecambe situation. We might, not promising yet, but we might have someone from Punjab Warriors joining us a bit later in the show. Ollie Stevenson, our producer, is trying his hardest to get it done, and Clive Betts, Labour MP for the South East and Sheffield area, is going to join us as well. Loads going on with Sheffield Wednesday at the moment. Stefan, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Football expert, no?
Well, I like it, but most people won't.
It's a good title. We'll go on to X in a minute and see if everyone agrees. Was you listening to the previous conversation that we were having? What do you make of that?
Well, you've got to understand the guy that was on before is...
Dolph Seeger, Justice as board member.
Yeah, so, I mean, he will be incentivised to win a case on a no-win, no-fee and try and extract as much value out of that situation as possible.
Ambulance chasing.
Of a type. Yeah. Look, I suspect that there's so many vested interests in the current status quo of the transfer market that it will be very hard for it to change materially over time. Now, you might say, well, that was the same with Bosman, and that's true. But, you know, if you're Liverpool, let's say, and you're after Isak, you're not incentivized to try and find a way to get him out of Newcastle using this Article 17 free transfer, you know, all of that part of the regime, because all it's going to do,
come back your way sometime.
Is immediately smash the value of your playing squad, including players that you've just paid £100 million for. So I think there's a lot to be said for the current regime, and that applies also to players. You know, players are signing 6, 7, 8 year contracts, and there's a reason for that, because they do like the security that a contract brings. So I think players need to be slightly careful what they wish for. I understand clearly that there is an incentive. If you're an ex-player and you feel that over the years maybe you weren't treated particularly well, or that you wanted a move because you've been badly treated, and there is this concept of a presumption of inducement, which puts on a buying club an obligation, or did do in the past, put on them an obligation where they were effectively going to have to pay compensation, and it was going to be presumed that they'd encouraged the player to walk out of the prior club, and therefore there was a disincentive to sign a player who was coming out of a difficult situation. So like Diarra, that's what happened. Diarra was unhappy, and it was a disincentive. Well,
seemingly justifiably so, though. If you look into the case, justifiably so.
Ultimately, justifiably so to an extent. Yeah. But there was a disincentive on the new club to take him, because they might at some point be hit with a 10, 20 million euro liability. Yeah. And obviously clubs don't want to do that. So if you're an ex-player, you probably quite like these rules. But if you're a current player, actually the status quo works quite well for you at the top.
Just so that none of us get sort of smacked on the backside here, Dolph Seeger is not on a no-win, no-fee. He's part of the Justice for Players board.
Right.
Just want to clarify. No one wants to get a letter in the post, do they?
He's not the lawyer.
He is.
He is the lawyer.
He is the lawyer.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It's unclear what his role is then in terms of being on the board, and
we might have to get him on again.
Oh, yeah. It'd be interesting to see who'd be funding class action then.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a very good point. The pursuit of what will be, and he did sort of hint this, what will be a multi-year case if they were to take it forward. I mean, extraordinarily expensive.
Expensive.
The question is, who is funding it? That's something that I'm sure that they can share with people, so we understand, the interests that are there in terms of going forward.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's talk Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have obviously their case with CAS coming up, or the UEFA that's going to CAS coming up. Crystal Palace have been drawn in their Conference League games. They'll either take on Norwegian side Fredrikstad or Michelin of Denmark. What was funny, actually, well, not funny, but Crystal Palace on their social media channels posted this draw. And you're like, do you want to be in this draw or not? Clearly you don't want to be. Why are you posting? The post was quickly taken down as well. Why did they post it? Someone in their social media team is going to get.
I don't know. Why did they take it down? I mean, at the moment they are in the Europa Conference. I would say.
Yeah, but you don't want to be in.
Well, I know they don't, but I mean,
that's where they are currently.
Yeah. Why did they take it down then? As you said,
I don't know. I mean, look, we just got to see how it plays out. There's a piece reported in the Times yesterday which refers to a couple of documents that they've got hold of that they clearly believe are transformational to their case at CAS. They relate to slightly different rules being applied potentially to Nottingham Forest.
Two-tier UEFA.
And potentially messages that were given by the ECA, the European Clubs Association, that never got to Crystal Palace because Crystal Palace weren't part of the ECA. And now, I think the problem with both of those ideas as being ways in which they can undermine the UEFA decision, the problem with both of them are that it would have made no difference to Crystal Palace. And in fact, John Textor admitted it in this very studio, that it would have made no difference. So it's very hard to understand how they think that those will be the things that will overturn the decision.
Does it set fire to Nottingham Forest, though?
Well, I don't think so, because Nottingham Forest, according to those documents, Nottingham Forest did nothing wrong. Those documents suggest that Nottingham Forest were able to extend the time period from the 1st of March to the 29th of April with the consent of UEFA. So what have Nottingham Forest done wrong in that scenario? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem to me to undermine Nottingham Forest's case.
But haven't Forest changed again? Didn't Marinakis create a situation, then uncreate it?
Well, yeah, because they weren't in. There wasn't a conflict, so he could come out of his blind trust. But again, that seems to me to be reasonable. If he doesn't need the blind trust, then he can come out of it. Yeah. There is a question, I think, a fair question, as to why that was all processed at the end of April rather than on the 1st of March, if that was the rule. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of it's a point that goes nowhere in circumstances where Crystal Palace didn't take action to try and pursue the end of April rule. They have said we didn't need to take action because we weren't part of a multi-club. We didn't even think about it. And in any event, we wouldn't have done it anyway. That's their position.
Wouldn't Palace argue that dates have been changed
control, yeah.
and moved for Forest and not for them?
The point is, there's nothing to say that the approach taken with Nottingham Forest
Couldn't
wouldn't
have been available to Crystal Palace.
Correct.
Yeah,
If
but
Crystal Palace
they didn't
asked for it. They didn't ask
They
for it.
didn't ask for it because, according to them, they weren't aware of it. So I just don't know where the point goes. They think it's a very strong point, so I could be completely wrong. The fact that they've leaked it out to the press, I think suggests that they think these are two absolutely critical documents to their case. It also hints, potentially, that they don't believe that their arguments in relation to decisive influence, which is the core of why they've been demoted, it could be that they don't believe that the core of those arguments against decisive influence are strong in themselves, so that they can't unpick UEFA's position on decisive influence. Now, I would say if that is the case, again, it makes it harder for them to win at CAS.
Maybe part of this argument, or separate to it, again, it'd be interesting to get your points, is this now rumoured relationship between John Textor and Marinakis. Does that have any bearing on this? Or should it be looked at?
Look, there's
different reasons.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's very strange that if there is this relationship that is going to be formalised with Botafogo going forward, it's very odd that it would come out into the media this week. Yeah. Of all weeks, it's a very, very strange situation that they themselves would be happy for it to come out. There's been very unusual deals, shall we say, between Nottingham Forest and Lyon in particular, and also inbound from Botafogo into Nottingham Forest. We've all seen those. Niakate last season and Mangala. I mean, Mangala was a player who was on loan. They then crystallised the purchase and then immediately loaned him to Everton, Lyon, last season. That was a very, very unusual transaction. And of course, the two transactions, the £25 million for Mangala and the near £30 million for Niakate, clearly was very important for Nottingham Forest's PSR position. So they've obviously had relationships. Now, the sort of...
Your smile there, Simon's almost given away without talking. You're saying a lot without saying anything.
I'm listening to Stefan. I don't think there's any doubt that there's a relationship between Marinakis and Textor, and how that relationship manifests. I think they're like-minded people. I think they have like-minded outcomes in mind. And I would be surprised if we don't see that manifest itself.
But the dealings are unusual. I mean, you know, if you look at also the goalkeeper situation, so...
the Lyon goalkeeper?
No, the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper, the American...
Matt Turner.
Yeah. So Turner goes to Lyon this summer for, I think, €8 million. Yeah. They then, under new management at...
rescind the contract, can't do it.
At Eagle, yeah. They want to back out. They can't back out because...
It's done.
Yeah. And so they loan him immediately off to the US.
To New England Revolution team. So much to unpack here. All right, you listen to Oladipo and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. More from Stefan Borson, football finance expert. Don't go anywhere. Good morning, Ade Oladipo, Stefan Paulson and Simon Jordan, who's out there like he's at naughty school. These two need to start a podcast. Fascinating. Listen to what these two have to say in the break. Daniel Levy has had a fascinating conversation with Gary Neville. He's criticised the length of time it's taken for the Premier League to investigate Man City's alleged 115-plus charges. This is what Daniel Levy, the Spurs chairman, had to say about how long the case has taken.
I think it would be really unfair of me to talk about another club within the Premier League. All I would say, it's going through a process which I think has gone on for far too long, and it needs to be brought, for the good of the game, to a conclusion. And I think it was the FA that should have brought us all together. I agree, it's unfortunate that we haven't managed to resolve things internally rather than, really the recourse to the lawyers, because the lawyers are going to earn a lot of money out of this.
It is interesting there, isn't it? Because it does say a lot, but then also doesn't say very much as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was, the whole thing was a bit like that. You know, I mean, I think for Spurs fans in particular, he said almost nothing and showcased the stadium that we've all known about for the last 5 years. I mean, it's not just opened. So I thought it was a bit of a bizarre interview. No, but it just didn't get to anything. You know, we had Gary Neville's sort of interesting bits about the football regulator, but even that was based on false references to budgets and things. I mean, they talked about the independent football regulator having a budget of £40 million a year.
That's not true.
And how that wasn't going to be enough. Well, it's a quarter of that.
Yeah, it's 10 million.
I mean, it's 10 million a year. So how they think this football regulator is going to all of a sudden change everything with £10 million a year is a bit surprising.
I think I think the new chair is an interesting character. I think he's a solid individual, David Cogan.
Oh, I thought he was fantastic in his interview in the select committee. I think they are very lucky to have somebody with his credentials and calibre as the chair. Yep. So at least they've got that.
Yep.
And even that, the government almost screwed that up by making it political. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the problem in having government involvement in a regulator.
Absolutely.
Is that you have political influence,
yes,
even where you've got the best possible person that you could reasonably expect to be the chairman.
Absolutely.
But I mean, just in terms of
Levy.
what Levy said about the City situation.
Well, we've been saying, isn't it? We know the process has taken too long.
Yes, of course, but it's a bit rich for one of the instigators and the complainants that I suspect started the whole process around the case.
Yeah,
it's a bit rich to then complain about the length of the process.
No, that's not right. I mean,
hold one thing to start it, but there's another thing to say speed it up.
No, that's not right. And the fact that Tottenham and Levy might have been one of the leading voices that felt that these things should be investigated doesn't mean that the process shouldn't be better.
Well, sort of, except you have to understand what you're alleging. So if you go round, I mean, look, there's different ways of managing the case, I think, which is the point you're making, and the point that I assume.
And the point we made the other day about the engagement of the independent panel and the timelines they should work in.
So fair enough, manage it in a different way, but you are talking about something which, in any situation, is going to take multiple years.
Oh, agreed.
Right? So there's no way around that.
Agreed.
So if you wanted, as Daniel Levy seems to be suggesting, if you wanted a process that was going to be kept very tight, investigated behind closed doors and then negotiated either by the FA, although I don't really understand what the angle is for the FA, but and then investigated and
Well, you're talking about regulation and governance of the game, and really there.
Okay, so if you wanted it done in that way, behind closed doors, then unfortunately the rules are not set up at all for dealing with situations like that. So we've seen even admitted cases take a long time. You know, look at the Chelsea situation with these off-book payments. That situation has been ongoing, I think, for 3 years since they admitted it themselves. So that there's no question of whether they did it. They say they did it, and yet we still don't even have a charge. So if that's charged, there's then a process, presumably another, I don't know, 6 months, 1 year. So that in itself is going to go on, and that's the situation that's been admitted. The reality is, in all of these sorts of situations, if you have and you go round making allegations of serious wrongdoing by individuals and by clubs, you have to allow the process to take the time to fully investigate and to prosecute any charges. It's just the nature of the beast.
I do want to get your take on another thing he said in that interview, although you said it wasn't the greatest thing. He also claimed that related party sponsorship is one of the biggest threats, as clubs that are owned by nation states can do deals with themselves. Again, not quite correct, maybe the wording of it, but he's got a point there. You look at the situation with Darwin Núñez, obviously being sold to a PIF club in Al Hilal, and Liverpool about to buy.
Daniel's got a better argument than that, and better arguments than that, because associated party transactions in a global world, we opened up the world to be global in business terms for the Premier League. You tell me which associated party transactions you like and which ones you don't like them, because you do business with people. And you do business with business that you're invested in, and you can look at most transactions in the world and they're indexed to one another.
But people don't want to look at football like that, do they? People don't. Fans still don't look at football as businesses like that.
But they are. And what they look, I mean, they do to some extent, because they understand the ramifications of buying footballers and selling footballers and demanding that we've got the best managers. So they understand that to build these wonderful cathedrals and have these wonderful players performing them and cost money, they just don't really want to worry about the machinations. And I understand that. And there's a traditional football fan that just wants to know how good a footballer is. But it has changed.
Well, the Liverpool situation...
Hence one of the reasons why he's there.
Yeah, football expert. But you have to remember, I mean, the Liverpool Núñez situation is a good example because, first of all, they're not connected to PIF, as far as we know. And yet Liverpool are very happy to take the money from PIF, from Saudi Arabia, to sell Núñez at a probably inflated value compared to what they can get in Europe. Very happy to take that money. And as Spurs would be if they could get an offer for, I don't know, Richarlison, say. I mean, Daniel Levy will sell to Saudi Arabia tomorrow if that offer comes in. So, and neither of those clubs are related parties. Then you've got the situation where Daniel Levy, maybe he was using the wrong terminology, but
isn't the related party there, Stefan, that Liverpool are going to sell Darwin Núñez to a PIF-owned club?
Yeah.
And are then trying to buy Isak from a PIF-owned club.
Okay, but what's the suggestion? Are we saying that there's a conspiracy between Liverpool, PIF and Newcastle to move money around? Surely not. I mean, surely we're not suggesting that, because I would think that there's no evidence to suggest that there is some kind of arrangement between that benefits ultimately Liverpool in getting the player that they want. I don't think that is the suggestion. So I think it happens to be slightly surprising, but actually arguably argues that there is a division within PIF between the actions that they take in the Saudi League and the actions that they take for Newcastle. It actually suggests separation, not conspiracy, I would argue. But because I can't see any other way. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to sell Isak, the last thing you do is put Liverpool in funds by buying a player who is probably going to go for 20 million above his market rate, his European market rate, to Saudi Arabia. Because who is going to buy Núñez if Saudi Arabia don't buy Núñez?
You're right, but Liverpool, again, this is just fees that we don't know there. Liverpool are reportedly willing to sell Núñez, or Al Hilal want to buy him for nearly 90 million. That's an overinflated price, isn't it?
What it's making.
It feels that way, doesn't it? So there's only two scenarios. Well, not only two. The two scenarios are there's some kind of clever conspiracy where they inflate the price for Isak by paying a higher price for Núñez, and the money just goes right. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I mean,
or it's a consequence of the transactions that are done previously in terms of the nature of the business that we've set up, which is a global investment into sport. That's what it is.
Yeah, and people are happy to take the money when it suits them and happy to complain about it when it doesn't.
Yeah. Indeed. Stefan Borson, fantastic for coming in. Thank you very much. All right, up next, we're going to be joined by Matt Gibson at BetMGM to discuss the latest odds.
Here are some of the best off-camera anecdotes from recent years at the Ryder Cup. As caddy Billy Foster went to relieve himself at the Belfry, he noticed only one of the two cubicles had toilet paper. Shortly after he'd sat down, Tiger Woods went into the empty cubicle and realised his mistake all too late. So Foster took some paper, reached under the cubicle with a rescue offering, and as Tiger went to take it, Foster uttered the words, "Europe, one up." Fast forward 10 years to the miraculous Medina. Rory McIlroy overslept and was in danger of missing his Sunday tee time. Thankfully, travel organiser Erica Stoll sorted him a police escort. And 3 years later, McIlroy proposed. Scottish legend Sam Torrance tells many a yarn about the great Ballesteros. Apparently, Seve would regularly give coaching clinics to his European teammates. When the same players asked for help a week later at the Italian Open, Seve would tell them to Having started with a Billy Foster story, let's finish with one from the 12th tee at Oakland Hills in 2004. It was Jimenez and Garcia against Westwood and Clark in a practice round, and as they finished, Foster decided to jump in the buggy and speed away with all their clubs, only to lose control entirely and see it careering towards the spectators. Thankfully, the Red Sea parted and the buggy smashed into a tree, with viewers and clubs still intact.
Good morning, Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan. Clive Betts is going to join us at Labour MP to talk Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, got loads going on with that club. Not positive either. We are going to talk a bit about Morecambe as well. Sheffield Wednesday, anyone buying it? Anyone interested?
Well, I think it's a great club, and I have said it to a number of people. And it's a club that if I were to get back involved in football, I'd be interested in getting involved in, because I think it's got such great potential. Chancellor's got to be gotten out, and of course, the reality of how much money he thinks he's owed against how much money someone's going to be paying for it are two different things. And when you talk to various people, they think, he wants 200 million for Sheffield. That may well be what he's owed. It may well be. And Sheffield fans will say
that's not what it's worth.
It's not what he's going to get for it, and someone's going to take a haircut at some point. Well, I've always felt, even back in the day when I was there, the Sheffield Wednesday was one of those football clubs that if you got the right people involved with it, gave it the right energy, that the town would get behind it. It's got the scale and scope and the history and the heritage. It just felt like it needed a bit more dynamism. I'm oversimplifying it, but I spoke to John Textor about it. I spoke to Turkey Yellow Sheikh about it. And said, if you're going to buy another
big
football club,
there.
They got the money to, haven't they? Or certainly Turkey Yellow Sheikh has, yeah.
Certainly has. All right, it's time now to catch up on the odds thanks to BetMGM.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
And I'm delighted to say that we are joined by Matt Gibson from BetMGM to look at today's top sporting events and discuss the odds. Matt, let's start with the transfer deals. I mentioned it a bit earlier. There could be a domino effect. Alexander Isak, Benjamin Sesko, maybe Ollie Watkins chucked in there as well. Loads going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's we're 10 days out, aren't we? So there'll be plenty of moving and shaking over the next 2 weeks, and then probably up to the window ends at the end of this month, start of next. I just listened to the news segment there. Everton stepping up their interest in Tyler Diblin. I think that's really exciting. They've added Dewsbury Hall as well. I've not mentioned Everton all that much on these sort of transfer updates.
Well, you've not heard me say David Moyes. Have you not been listening to my David Moyes?
And then Spurs as well, like losing Maddison, missing out on Gibbs White. That's a potential like double as worse scenario, having a couple of midfielders missing, but I think João Palhinha is a really savvy signing for them on loan from Bayern Munich as well. So that domino effect that you're referring to, Ade, Sesko to Newcastle is the first domino that needs to fall. 80 million quid. We've got Sesko to Newcastle as 1-2 evens for Man United as well. That obviously frees up Alexander Isak to go and join Liverpool, joining Liverpool 1-2 around about 120 odd million quid as well, and then potentially Darwin Núñez will leave. Let's face it, if Isak joins, he'll be behind Ekitike and Isak in the pecking order. So Darwin Núñez to any Saudi club is 1-2, AC Milan 4-1. We're also just having a look at Mark Gay again, who Liverpool and Newcastle are in for. Evens to Liverpool, 6-4 to stay at Palace, Simon, so it's not all bad. 9-4 to go to Newcastle. I was speaking to a couple of Liverpool fans this morning, Ade. You've got an embarrassment of riches going forward. Your front players are so exciting, but you're a bit thin on the ground at centre-back. A couple of lads told me that in game 1 against Atletico Bilbao yesterday, he started with Simicast and Robertson at centre-back. Yeah. In game 2, Endo and Canate were at centre-back. Surely we need to prioritise another centre-back to your ranks than already adding 2. Let's face it, what is a pretty amazing front 5 from 6 players who you've got to choose from.
Yeah, you look at that situation with Ekitike, and look, ultimately he's a good player, so why not add more good players to your books? But you're right, you do look at the defence and it is very, very thin, and you think with that Ekitike money, surely they should have looked at a couple of centre-backs, Gahey being, I think, the number 1 choice. Like, did they need Ekitike more than they needed another centre-back?
Well, the manager must know what he needs and what he doesn't need, mustn't he? I mean, there's, you're not divorcing common sense from the reality of being able to have your eyes open, are you? So he can see it for himself. And I assume that Liverpool will have precisely what they need and when they need it. And obviously firepower is a big part. A lot of arguments were made. I made the argument about Man United with Neil Warnock the other day. And he was talking about they needed defensive cover. And his argument was, well, they don't concede goals. They need goal-scoring prowess. Yeah. And Liverpool are a side that obviously feels that their priorities are in certain areas. I find it very difficult to debate with people when you're talking about a guy that's won a Premier League, that knows what he wants and what he doesn't want, and more than capable of making those decisions for himself, rather than us ruminate about things that we don't know and he does.
Yeah, but Matt, to your point though, Matt,
who plays centre back if Virgil gets injured?
That's the issue, isn't it?
That'd be my.
I'm assuming he might know that himself. I'm assuming he'll be able to work that out himself.
I guess at the moment, Matt, it's what Joe Gomez and Canate. maybe. Gravenberch played there quite a lot last season as well, didn't he? But again, these are stopgaps. You need another centre-back in there.
I mean, the interesting thing about Gehi is, I mean, Matt says, "Oh, don't be so discouraged," but all it means is that if he stays for the rest of the season, he's going on a free. So Palace, that's the challenge of Palace. I mean, he is going to leave Crystal Palace. It's just not a case of if; it's a case of when.
What would you do if you were still Palace chairman? What would you do? Would you sell him, knowing that he's going to go?
Yeah, well, he's going to go.
Yeah,
so of course you would. I mean, you've survived the loss of players that are perceived to be pivotal. You know, Joachim Andersen went out to Fulham. They didn't miss a beat. They started the season poorly, but they got themselves together, and that was a lot to do with bringing Mateta back into the team after giving him a rest from the Olympics. You know, you lost Elise. You didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, agreed.
Wilf Zaha went a couple of seasons before and apparently couldn't win a game if Wilf Zaha wasn't playing. All of that's changed. So you've got to adapt to the circumstances. And if a player's going to leave and he's made it clear, doesn't matter what you do, he's going to leave, then you're best served and selling the player, unless you fundamentally believe that if you don't sell, if you're keeping him, will keep you in the division, and you're going to lose more by gaining the money from the transfer, by getting relegated from the league if you let him go. Well, if you sell Gehi, you can buy another centre-half and give yourself an opportunity in the same way that Gehi provided a solution to a problem you had 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You move on, don't you?
Yeah. You just think, Glasner will be looking at that team that won the FA Cup thinking that team's already starting to be, people are already starting to pinch players off it.
He'll be looking
to build it as
he'll be
we
looking
go into Europe.
He'll be looking to kick on because he wasn't given that opportunity last year. And he'll feel categorically that he took a pill last year and accepted the situation without being given much money to spend. He won't be taking one this year.
Indeed. Rangers, let's talk about them. Russell Martin not happy after that draw against Motherwell. They're in Champions League qualification tonight. Back-to-back games for Rangers. He's almost finding out about that squad in live real time, isn't he? This isn't going to be easy.
No, we mentioned it yesterday, didn't we? Much talked about the Rangers' performance and then the following reaction. They've only played one league game, but they're already fairly deep into their season. A couple of legs against Panathinaikos, and then they take on Victoria Pilsen.
Are they favourites tonight, Matt? Are they favourites?
Yeah. They are, yeah. 27-25 favourites, 5-2 the draw, 9-4 for the visitors to go there and win. But it'll be interesting, won't it? Firstly, if the players respond to getting a little bit of a public hiding, and secondly, whether he makes any changes to shore things up. We're having a look at the stats this morning. Rangers have allowed 44 shots in their first 3 competitive games under Russell Martin, and the visitors, they don't mind pulling the trigger. They've taken 51 shots in the first 3. So I think unless Martin maybe shores it up, I think the goal will be under a little bit of fire. But it'll be really interesting to see whether the players go out and play for him, and there is a reaction after that disappointing result at Motherwell.
It'll be interesting to see if he has a squad big enough to cope with that. Again, that's a lot of games back to back already so early in the season. The test match between England and India was fascinating, fantastic yesterday. We had it live as well. We were living through it. It was fantastic. The 100 begins tonight. What are we hoping for? The same type of drama? How is this one going to play out?
Well, England don't play a test until Perth. So that's it for Test match cricket, but a fantastic advert for the sport. Not just yesterday, but the whole series has been brilliant. Plenty of those Test players are in action for the 100. Kicks off this evening with the London Derby. Spirit Invincibles, both men's and women's, playing tonight. And interestingly, Steve Smith is over here to play in the 100. So potentially,
bring your handkerchiefs.
We could see how we can.
What have I missed? What have I missed there?
Well, he was the one that burst into tears when he got caught, wasn't he? Steve Smith.
Yeah, and Warner's here as well. So both the blokes who
sponsored by Kleenex.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're both over here playing the 100. So it'll be interesting to see how they're received, and secondly how we can work out how to get Steve Smith out, because I think that'll be key to winning the Ashes.
Top man, Matt, always great to have you on. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. That was all the latest odds, all thanks to BetMGM. Remember, visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app 18+, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org.
All right, you're listening to Oladipo and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out these month's real deals at selcobw.com. Up next, we are going to be joined by MP for Sheffield South East, Clive Betts, to discuss the ongoing issues at Sheffield Wednesday. Good morning, Ade Oladipo alongside Simon Jordan. I do want to touch on this. We were going to touch on the last subject, but we didn't have enough time. Manchester United's plans to build their 100,000-seater stadium. Obviously, Old Trafford right now is looking very much Old
Making the
Trafford.
big point of not using any government money, whilst allowing the government to relocate the particular rail tracks in a different way, which is, by the way, using government money.
Yeah, that's... Have you just read the script?
No, I remember it. I remember it at the time because I pay attention to what Jim Ratcliffe says in the presentation at the time. Because at the time, don't you remember, he was talking about how Man United having no money, and then skipped out of that briefing into another briefing where he told everybody he was going to spend billions of pounds building a stadium.
Yeah, and now they're struggling. I mean, they're being. Jim Ratcliffe said 2030 they'd have that new stadium, which is obviously not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're not building that in.
But he's not the first football club chairman to put out a plan of what they're going to do with a stadium as a positive reinforcement of the central messaging, because other messages weren't being grounded very well. So the fact is that a new stadium was part of their principal focus and how they were going to develop it and make sure that Man United was the Wembley of the North. Doesn't need to be Wembley of the North. You've got Wembley and then you've got Man United. They're two different things. And there was always going to be the situation where football was going to be held hostage to fortune because those that have the land that they need are using it as a ransom strip.
Yeah, United value that land at 40 to 50 million.
Well, it's not theirs to value.
Of the land value at 400.
They can value what they want. It's like knocking on someone's door. I value your house at 50 grand. Well, you can bugger off. I value it at 500.
What happens there? I mean, obviously, look, they're going to come to a common ground and they're going to probably meet somewhere closer, I guess, to the middle, but that's a big issue. Well, it's a massive issue.
If indeed that is the situation and you're being held to ransom, it goes towards the build cost, doesn't it? If you talk to Daniel Levy about the building of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, he'll tell you today he couldn't build Tottenham Hotspur Stadium now because the cost implications of materials and everything that's gone up through the years would mean that the stadium would cost $2 billion to build rather than the $1 billion. Hence Jim Ratcliffe's dilemma, that everything that costs money involves... everything that they have to the component parts of building the stadium are likely to be subjected to various cost implications. And we've already seen that they rejected, didn't they? They rejected the idea they were going to build, refurbish Old Trafford and went for the more expensive option.
Is that a mistake? In hindsight?
Well, not necessarily, because it depends what you're going to do with it, because it might be that the footprint that you were having at Old Trafford didn't enable all the opportunities that clearly a football club will want to take advantage of. You know, whether you like it or you don't like it, having an F1 track and having all this sort of stuff around a football stadium is the... Go to Miami Dolphins. I was out there recently and watching their stadium. I was watching all the F1 trucks drive away. It's phenomenal.
Incredible. Yeah.
But it is also set in a part of Miami where you've got great big freeways and access to it is easy, whereas getting to a football club in England because of the geographic situation of this country is very different. So being able to build stadiums in the middle of nowhere like you can in America and have all the access control so you can get in and out of stadiums much easier is not available in this country. So you've got to create different outcomes. And you know that the funding implication of this is going to have some impact upon Manchester United or people around Manchester United or the people that support Manchester United, because it's not a charitable venture, it's a commercial venture, which is when Jim was talking about originally the idea that it should be government money thrown in was outrageous. Because it's not government money that's required to build a commercial venture. It's Manchester United's money. It's Manchester United as a private enterprise where the shareholders have made fortunes out of the football club. There's no way that anyone was going to tolerate...
How can you want government intervention into building a stadium?
Well, because if you can, and you can use it as part and parcel...
Jobs creation? Is that
well,
what
that would be the argument.
Yeah.
Sure, they made this... And Andy Burnham was involved in the conversation as well, and I like Andy. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but I like him in principle because I think he's quite a committed mayor. I disagree with some of the things he says ideologically, but he was talking about job creation and the reality of the wealth. And those figures never been tested because they were making a case and a big song and dance about there was no government money involved. And then you got this piece of land on the side that was going to be relocated, the railway terminus or where the rolling stock was held, was going to be moved to another part. But that's going to require funding, and it wasn't coming from Man United, it was coming from something else. So there was going to be government money involved. But the idea of everything costing more money will just be visited on the build cost, which has to be funded from somewhere.
How would you judge Sir Jim Ratcliffe as Manchester United owner so far?
I don't understand what he's doing. I don't understand why he's put himself in the way of suddenly taking all the hits. He's been positioned to take the hits, and he's taking the hits. He's a far brighter man than I'll ever be. He's far greater achievements than I'll ever have in his own particular space. But he seems to have been caught up by the bug of lunacy that a lot of us get involved in football clubs and find ourselves subscribing to how we think that we should behave rather than the reality of knowing how we should behave. Sitting there having conversations and talking about things. When he talked about Man United having no money, it was laughable. Yeah. And quite frankly, it should have been actionable because he's an influenceable figure. But whilst he isn't a ball, probably gets around it because he wasn't a director of Man United. But this is a listed security on the New York Stock Exchange. You cannot say things for a listed security that aren't true. And it clearly wasn't true that Man United had no money because even by their own submissions, it showed they had about 150 million on call or something in cash. So it was nonsense. And ultimately, if you start making claims about something that influences stock prices, that should be something that the New York Stock Exchange should have sanctioned, and maybe they didn't care and couldn't be bothered with it because it wasn't that big a deal. When Man United, as a listed business on the New York Stock Exchange, is an ant in comparison with some of the other businesses that are there. But
I laugh, but it's true.
But I look at it and think some of the things that Jim has put himself in the way of.
And he doesn't need to.
Well, he doesn't need
trying to appease the fans.
Well, he's not appeasing the fans because he's got himself now packaged in the same equation as the Glazers. The Glazers, Jim Ratcliffe, whether it's his money or whether he's leveraged the shares or ultimately it's his own cash, was brought in to fix the elements of what the Glazers had achieved, which is basically profit. Whether you like this deal or not, it is the greatest deal that anyone's ever done in business terms because the Glazers got into Man United for absolutely nothing. Yeah. And if you believe what you dig deeper and find out that actually they didn't even put the 250 million quid in that was part of their contribution, they leveraged that, got in, got everybody else to pay for it, whacking great big money out of it, and ultimately got it valued at 7-8 times the price that they never paid in the first place. So it's a fabulous deal. Jim's come in with a new idea of correcting and fixing the problems.
I think he regrets it. I think he thinks I didn't even.
I think it's
start
not
this.
difficult to get buyers regret in football. I can assure you.
Yeah.
Because you go for. I remember the first day I bought Crystal Palace after being in administration for 18 months and reading the forum board saying, "Thank God Jordan's here. Let's give him a couple of weeks before we hammer him." And I'm like, what? How's that work? Yeah. But that is football, because there is always going to be a situation where somebody needs to be blamed for the short-term malaise of you as a football fan not getting precisely what you want, from cold beer up to best player. It's how it works. Yeah. But Jim must be sitting there scratching his head thinking, I don't need this and that. But he's put himself in the way of it. He's put himself in the way. And the decisions that he's made have not been unreasonable decisions. This idea that they culled the staff and it's a terrible thing to do. Perhaps there was far too many staff scratching around doing nothing all day.
He would have seen that. He has to trim the fat. And
you have to do that. But that's like people will say, it's rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It was the bigger picture that needed to prevail. And then he makes ridiculous decisions with Ten Hag. And then he makes ridiculous decisions. Got to have Dan Ashworth. Oh, he's bleeding useless for the task that we wanted for, out the door. And make statements like, well, Newcastle are being difficult. Why won't they just release Dan Ashworth? Because they don't work for Man United, that's why. And they didn't want to release Dan Ashworth to you guys just because you think you've got a God-given right to do what you want. So I think there's a whole raft of things that probably Jim looks back on and thinks, maybe I could have done that differently. Yeah. It's easier to say than when you're in the glare of it all.
Of course. We spoke about sort of Ruben Amorim and the issue he has with United on the field, right? And almost that cruise ship that needs to be turned around, and it's going to be very difficult to do so. How long would it take United to get back to where we perceive United to be? We're of an age, and I group us together, where United were the biggest thing in world football.
But they don't operate in a vacuum, do they? Because you're discounting what's happened to the other football clubs, and the equations of the Man City phenomenon and the Liverpool re-emergence as a power in English football, not just winning cups now. They are a powerful football club again, and in the right direction, and a brilliant football club, and I always have been. You know, I grew up watching Liverpool and admiring Kevin Keegan and Emlyn Hughes, and watching the 1977 European Cup against Borussia Mönchengladbach on TV, and wanting an English team to win. And so Man United don't operate in a vacuum. What you've got to try and do is get the best version of Manchester United again, which at this moment in time is nowhere near what they've got, and see how it stacks up against the new forces. Because Chelsea are a force, Liverpool are a force, Arsenal are a force. The change of operation in Arsenal, Man City, the change of operation in Arsenal is palpable. Look at it. Stan Kroenke was the silent billionaire they never heard from, and people accused him of being the only billionaire that they knew of being happy with mediocrity.
Yeah.
And that changed when Stefan Eck decided that potentially Arsenal could be bought for £2 billion and wanted to do it post-COVID. All of a sudden, Stan puts his son in Josh more hands-on, and all of a sudden Arsenal's spending pattern has gone dramatically in the different direction. So the argument about what Man United can do, it discounts that the other football clubs have a say in it.
They're not standing still, are they?
No. And that's the great thing about the Premier League.
Certainly.
Which is why you mustn't kill it with stupid nonsense like PSR, because what you'll do is you'll turn it into the selling league. The moment you start taxing the Premier League, distributing it differently, introducing ideas that idiot politicians come up that think that everything operates in a vacuum. Oh, well, free to air. Fine. Eventually, when there's all the money's been sucked out of the Premier League, no one wants to invest in it, it becomes a selling league, and you've got Woolworths instead of Harrods, you'll be happy, will you?
No, we won't. All right, up next, we're going to be switching our conversation to boxing. Tyson Fury's made some comments that he will retire again.
For every good signing a club makes, there's bound to be a few that don't work out. And Man United have certainly had their fair share of those, especially since the end of their golden age under Sir Alex Ferguson. Here are just some of the Red Devils' worst signings since Fergie. First up, Alexis Sanchez. Sanchez joined United from Arsenal back in 2018 and became the highest paid player in the Prem. He'd averaged almost 1 goal every 2 games for the Gunners, but in his 45 games for Man United, he only managed 5 goals. Not what you want from a star striker. Next up, Radamel Falcao. He earned himself the nickname the Tiger for his sheer efficiency and the way he used to pounce upon the mistakes of defenders. But at Man United, he was way more pussycat than Tiger, to be honest. All he managed in 29 Man United games was 4 goals. Moving on, things couldn't have gone much worse for Jadon Sancho at Man United. Yeah, it would have been hard to outdo his Borussia Dortmund form, but 12 goals in 83 games is not great. Things got worse after a public fallout with manager Erik ten Hag. Sancho said he was being made a scapegoat. Ten Hag said there'd been a discipline issue. It all ended up with Sancho going back to Germany. Next, Erik ten Hag probably thought he was being smart in sticking to what he knew when he signed Antony from his former club Ajax. But the £86 million Brazilian hasn't really been able to hack it in the Prem. Chances are Antony's Man United days are numbered. Next, the curse of the Man United number 7 shirt. Not an easy act following Ronaldo, Cantona, Beckham and George Best, but Memphis Depay was another striker who was apparently allergic to scoring for United. He scored just 7 in 53 appearances, a huge letdown since he'd helped PSV win the Dutch league just a season before joining. Last one, Angel Di Maria was set to be United's landmark signing when he joined in 2014, but 1 season later he was already on his way out. 4 goals in 32 games was just not good enough, given he'd broken the British record transfer fee when he signed. And those are just a few examples. To be honest, the list could go on and on. Unfortunately, that's probably why Man United haven't won the Prem for a while, and why it might take a few more years before they're in contention again.
Good afternoon, just gone 12 o'clock. Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan. I'm running through my running order here, and there is a section 3 at 12:15. Does that mean, Ollie, that we've got Punjab Warriors coming on? We don't yet. We're trying. We are trying. It's going to be difficult, but yeah, why don't they want to come on? Exactly, that is the question. Why don't they want to come on?
The offices are probably based in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, maybe. All right, next Saturday, The Zone are going to bring you 5 huge fights in one night. Unbeaten rising star Moses Italma takes on the proven and very dangerous, I think, still Dillian White in a heavyweight showdown. Oh, yeah, I'm going, yeah. I'm flying out on Sunday for that one. Should be a good one. Nick Bull in action as well. David Adelaide, Raymond Ford. Actually, no, Raymond Ford, he's injured. Filip Hrgovic, don't miss it next Saturday, August 16th. You can watch it live on The Zone.
Boxing Update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
That is a good card, isn't it? I'm happy you just said that. I thought you just got card.
No, it's a good card. I like the card. I mean, obviously, I think Nick Bull's fight against Sam Goodman, I'd like to see Nick fighting the other belt holders, but Frank's saying that he can't get them to fight. They don't want to fight. So it might, all roads might lead to Inouye. But Sam Goodman fights for the first time in that weight class, but he'll bring it, won't he? He will. I'd be fascinated to see how David Adelaide goes against Filip Hrgovic, because it looks like such a big step up. But Adam Booth is so convinced of he's convinced of the talent that David Adelaide. I like David Adelaide. Yeah. I think he does have a lot of talent. I think he's been surprised. Obviously, the Fabio Wardley situation. I didn't like the way he behaved before the fight with Fabio Wardley, but I do like him as a fellow. I think that the Jamie TKV fight was a poor fight, but we're going to see, whether putting him in with Hrgovic looks like a massive risk, but they must know what they're doing.
The reward is so big if you win.
Yeah, and that's what Adam was saying, wasn't it?
Yeah, the reward.
And you look at the featured event, Moses Italma not only fighting Dillian White, but carrying the event. I know Nick Bull is the co-main event, but the heavyweights are where the focus is going to be. So Moses has got a whole raft of other responsibilities now. He's got to face-offs.
It's interesting, actually.
He's got to deal with the media,
the interviews,
and all of that. And
Something he's almost been sort of coyed away from.
Yeah, as a part of. I think he'll put Dillian away. With all due respect to Dillian, I think he will. And then it's a case of where do they put Moses? Do they put him in against Joseph Parker if the belt's vacated by Alexander Usyk in December on the Riyadh card? Yeah. Because you've got this rising star. That's a natural fit for that sort of fight, isn't it? Because it makes Parker, with due respect to Joseph, who I like a lot, more bankable because of the Moses effect, because he's so young and he's perceived to be the rising star. But it's a great card.
I'm fascinated to know how people view Moses over here in terms of that star. We love boxing. Yeah. So we look at Moses as a star. Is Moses the type of fighter that if he were to beat Dillian White and they put him in with a big name, could he fill out the O2 arena? Like, am I getting ahead of myself? How far away is he from that?
Train is firmly on track. And the fact that Dillian is a highly recognised, I think, former elite fighter that got shown the levels he was at by Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see how Moses responds to the noise around him in terms of the press, because him being able to break out like Anthony Joshua did isn't just about the execution. Because when Anthony Joshua was fighting Gary Cornish and things of that nature, these aren't interesting fights to people, but the fact that Joshua was able to look so good and translate so well was part of it. Moses is a different animal, and if he can translate into the mainstream media the way that Anthony does and fight the way he does, which is very reminiscent, which is lazy, I know, of the way Tyson fought, which is lets his hands go and does it with pace.
It's similar though, isn't it?
Totally.
It's a lazy, I know what you mean, but it's very similar.
If you look at the demolition of Mike Balogun, if you look at the demolition of Maris Wacken, if you look at the demolition of Dempsey McKean, they are Tyson-esque in execution. That is such an exciting, and with boxing being on such a high, Moses has a real opportunity. So it would be a real fascinating thing to see how he is, because he's a very interesting kid, very bright, very stoic, very under, he is getting bolder with some of the things he says.
But he's almost so laid back.
Yeah, but it's menacing.
That's
it's a menacing laid back.
Menacing laid back. And what's more menacing about it is he's only 20.
Yeah.
So you realise you're just talking to a kid.
But it's going to be a fascinating fight, because Dillian isn't going in there to be a punch bag. And it's interesting how they've got him. And Frank said, I know, because he's getting paid a big bag of money. Yeah, OK. But that's not also what Dillian is all about. Dillian's got his professional pride to be put on the line. Nobody wants to be used as a stepping stone or a punch bag for the next prospect, do they?
Yeah, and that's will be the first time for Dillian as well. I mean, mentally, I don't know where Dillian is, knowing that he's going over there as the lamb to the slaughter.
To an extent, yeah.
Which he's never been in before.
Yeah, but he's a fighter, isn't he? He doesn't think that way. He's been on the receiving end of being knocked out by Tyson Fury in front of 90,000 fans at Wembley. The only thing I was disappointed about that whole spectacle was I thought he was a lamb at the press conference. The moment I saw the press conference at Wembley Stadium, I knew that
it wasn't the Dillian we were used to.
No, it was Tyson Fury show.
Yeah.
And Tyson Fury stood in the corner with a microphone talking down to Dillian with his gloves on.
Yeah, it wasn't good, is it? On Tyson Fury, let's hear from the Gypsy King. It's funny, we spoke about Moses Atama, the future. Tyson Fury very much right at the end of his career. And he's kind of, I guess, reinforced that. He was at the Doncaster races a couple of days ago and reiterated that he won't return to the ring.
When do we see you back in the ring, by the way?
Never.
Really?
Really. Yeah. Too old, look at me beard, all grey. Boxing's a young man's game.
So maybe a string of racehorses instead?
Maybe, who knows. Yeah. Thank you.
Wish you all the best.
I never know what to believe with Tyson Fury, because he wasn't calling out Alexander Usyk a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but I
went for a jog after the fight.
I think there's for Tyson, there's only one thing people talking about him that's worse for him is people not talking about him. And so he will keep himself in the public eye. He's got every right to lead the media a dance if he wants to, because the media will lead him a dance if it suits them.
True.
So he can create content or not create content as he feels. And if the opportunity, because I think Tyson Fury was a lightning rod for the heavyweight division, irrespective of what I think comes out of his mouth sometimes is unpleasant. That he's not a politician, he's not a statesman, he's not there designed to be the most palatable person in the world. But I think beating Klitschko in 2015 opened up the heavyweight division, scattered the belts. Anthony Joshua got the benefit of that a couple of years later. And I think Fury has done some very good things. I think some of the things he says and things I don't like, I think they're unnecessary.
Such an entertainer, though.
He is, and I'm not going to use the language that he used in the Klitschko press conference, but I still think that I can lick that. Right, is the best line I've ever heard.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
And I think he was so funny and so charismatic. And I think heavyweight boxing will miss him. Do I think he'll fight again? Probably. I think because Tyson Fury, in his soul, is a fighter. And I think if he doesn't have that, then I don't know what helps him balance the so-called issues that he has in bipolarity and whatever else. I never know why bipolarity only manifests itself in unpleasantness. Why can't you be excessively nice? I've never understood that, but maybe that's because I'm not a doctor. But I think he'll fight again. But I think the world moves on.
Who? No, AJ Usyk. Who's he fighting again next year?
Look, those boys are in the business of making a lot of money, and there's an opportunity to make a lot of money. And whether they can win world titles with Usyk where he is right now, or whether Usyk's time has been and gone, and the belts get scattered, and they give him another chance to operate at that level. I think we'll see Fury in the ring, and he'll change his mind when there's a big fight coming up, and it's not about him.
By the way, he looked good in that, didn't he? One thing I always know, that's it. He looked very healthy.
If it's so, he should do. He's got 250 million quid in the bank.
And
his last set of accounts is 175 million in assets plus 8 million quid in cash. Fair play to him. Take advantage of the opportunity. That's what you've done. Good luck to you. But notwithstanding that, I think you will see him again. And what version of him we'll see, I don't know. But the one thing that goes on is that boxing is in such a good condition.
It moves on.
It moves on, and if you look at the amount of people that were sending their birthday wishes into Turkey Al Sheikh yesterday.
I was going to ask you, did you send yours?
No, I didn't, because my head's not up his backside. And obviously he enjoys all the applause and the wonderful list of people that are giving him a happy birthday celebration. But if you look at that and you look at the opportunities, look how, Frank did this. Frank opened this door. This situation 2 years ago, when I was talking to him about the situation with boxing and where it was going, and he was talking about the Ngannou event, and he was all about, because I did the upfront stuff with him, and I was putting it on him about what you're doing and this, that, and the other, and he said, wait and see. And whoever was in there before, and Herm was over there, and he was having relationships, going over to Saudi, lecturing British boxing about how it should behave, right? And Frank opened the door. And everything that's come out of that. Now, whatever their motivations are and whatever their end game is, boxing has been given a shot in the arm.
100%. Those events, the events that have been put on, and it'll be nearly 2 years in October since that Fury and Ngannou event. And it's been enormous event after enormous event absolutely. All the time. So,
but even of course, the effect of that has been that the standard has risen in everything now. You've got Fabio Wardley fighting at Ipswich Town Football Stadium against Justice Hooney. You've got Dave Allen now fighting against Makhmudov in Sheffield.
Yeah.
You've got Callum Simpson fighting at Barnsley Football Stadium.
Crazy,
all of these fighters now out there.
Everyone's risen.
Absolutely.
Everyone's risen.
Absolutely.
One fighter that we wait to see who will fight next, is heavily linked with Tyson Fury for the past decade, is Anthony Joshua. And you spoke to a potential opponent of Anthony Joshua, Tony Yoka, on the Talk Boxing show yesterday.
I think he had a really bad fight against Dubois. I was shocked in this fight. For real, I was just like, wow, because Daniel was incredibly strong in that fight, So I think he's mentally ready now to go on, and this is why they're talking about a fight. I think it makes sense, 2 gold medal. 2 guys who received several defeats. Now they want to go back. I think Ade Cabell is a really good fighter. I think a lot of people underestimate him a lot last years, but now he beats some really serious guy. But Anthony Joshua is just, for the history, is bigger for me. I know him since more than 15 years now. We've been sharing the ring. When he was on the national team, I was in the national team. He's an Olympic champion. I think it makes sense to build this thing up.
Not quite sure where I think Tony Yoka is. There was a time, obviously, after the Olympics when he won gold. I thought, he's got the presence and the stature.
He's lost to Carlos Takam, hasn't he?
Yeah, lost to Bacoli, I believe.
There's no great shame in losing to Bacoli, but the Carlos Takam one, it was with due respect to Carlos, was coming to the end of his career. Now, obviously, you can make the narrative of Olympic gold medalists, but Olympic gold medalists, with the exception of Audley Harrison, have kicked on with credibility, haven't they?
Yeah.
George Foreman, Lennox Lewis, and obviously Anthony. In this instance, Tony Yoka's 33 years of age, and I said to him,
doesn't look 33.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He probably hasn't got that much wear and tear on the clock, has he? And you look at it and say, well, do you want to fight for a world title? Absolutely. So why don't you fight Ade Cabell then? Because he's nearer to a world title.
Trick question that was.
Yeah, it was a loaded question to get him. Because he knows that the money in the room. He knows the money's in the room is Anthony.
AJ.
Yeah, absolutely. So does that mean that he's got a credible performance in him to justify everyone being fascinated on the re-emergence of Anthony Joshua? This is an opponent picked to have a narrative, 2 Olympic gold medalists, so you can sell it.
Do you believe it's happening? It seems to be creeping forward now. No one seems to say no to it or shooting it down.
I don't know. I'd rather have that fight than Anthony Joshua go within 50 feet of Jake Paul.
Yeah.
But and Ben Davison's had his say on that, and I'd like to see Anthony Joshua do precisely what's right for him.
I just want to see AJ fight. It's got to that stage now.
If that's right, but if it's
not a Jake
if it's
Paul
right
type
for him,
okay.
If it's right for him, if it's right for him spiritually and physically, and I don't mean this in some kumbaya moment, but he's made all the money that he can make. Or no, all the money that he would ever need to make, right? He's lifted himself and his family out of generations of potential requirements for cash. He's given himself a platform to be wherever he wants to be, right? So, for me, it feels that this is managed decline.
Okay.
And like we talk about that in society, managed decline. Anthony Joshua is not at the level that Anthony Joshua wants. I always thought, with due respect to him, he was a flat track bully, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I felt that he could, when he was on top, he could deal with it, and that's what the observation was made about Daniel Dubois. When he's on top, he's an on-top fighter, and when it gets put on them, they can't cope with it. And
So do you not believe he's still one of the top heavyweights?
Yeah, of course. I think he's one of the top heavyweights, but I don't think he's like, do I believe that Chelsea are challenging a contender for the Premier League? Yeah. Do I think they're going to win it? No, not this season, no. Okay. So I do believe that Anthony Joshua is a top heavyweight, but do I think he's a world title winning heavyweight? Yeah, if he matches against the right person, but if he's matching against the best of the best, I wouldn't want to see Anthony Joshua have done to him what Dillian White may get done to him by Moses Atoma.
I hate that. Yeah. Yeah, as an AJ fan, I'd absolutely hate to see that. Yeah. All right, you're listening to Oladipo and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. Up next, we're going to be looking at football clubs screening their away games at their home grounds this season. Good afternoon. You're listening to Ade Oladipo's Simon Jordan. We are going to discuss football clubs showing their away games at their home ground shortly, but I am delighted to say that we plugged it a bit earlier, and Labour MP for Sheffield South East, Clive Betts, can join us now. Clive, really appreciate you coming on. I've read your letter to the EFL. Obviously, look, I think we all, regardless of what team you support, when you look at a club the size of Sheffield Wednesday and what it's going through, I think we all have concerns. With regards to that letter to the EFL, what's the hope here, Clive? What are you hoping the EFL can do, or what can they step in and do to Chancery and the football club?
I think they're limited what they can do, because essentially the powers of the EFL are about the football club, their member, not about the owner. And that's always the difficulty. We saw the problems they had with Reading. Eventually, they managed to find a way forward there. So looking at the EFL to look at every possibility, initially hoping they can join with the fans, joining with the local MPs, and put pressure on Chancery to do the obviously sensible thing and sell the club. He can't continue to run it, so let's find someone who can.
It's easy to say sell the club. Obviously, if he has his own figure, which he's right to have, and me and Simon were talking about it a bit earlier, if he has, he wants to sell the club for 200 million. If no one wants to buy it for 200 million, he's not going to sell it, is he?
Well, it's worth nothing then, because if he carries on at the current rate, he's going to have a club with a ground that's falling apart, a team that's been sold off, and almost certain relegation next season. So the club is worth a lot less than it was 6 months ago. So, there's an interest there for him, surely. If he's got no long-term ability to run this club, which he clearly hasn't, then selling the club and gaining as much as he can, rather than some wishful figure that nobody believes in, is obviously the way forward.
I guess I fully understand what Clive's saying here. Do we need government intervention in situations like this with clubs?
Well, we've got it in a sense, haven't we? We've got a football regulator coming down the track. And one of the things I think we're all hoping is that talking to ministers, which I and my colleagues will be doing, is to get that regulator up and running in place as soon as possible, because the regulator will have more powers to step in and deal with owners like Chancery, where the league has very limited powers.
My answer to that, not really. I don't want politicians anywhere near sport as much as I possibly can help it, because most of the time all they're doing is grandstanding for an audience, and they don't really understand what they're talking about. And the governance bill has very little chance of having any meaning if you're going to give it a £10 million budget. A regulator to police 92 football clubs and have the nuance and caveats that are required to regulate properly. The one benefit they've got is they've got a proper chair in place, albeit government tried to do the very level best not to allow that to happen. They've got a proper chair in place.
Yeah, agreed.
With David Cogan, who is a sensible operator. Look, I mean, Chancery is in a situation, whether he's a rogue owner or whether he's an owner that's run into financial difficulties are a debate. What we tend to do is be very binary in our observations. Once upon a time, because he was spending lots of money, he's a good owner. Now that he's not, I'm not saying he was a good owner, but for example, Mel Morris.
View of him.
Mel Morris was perceived to be a very good owner until Mel Morris ran out of money, and then he's a rogue owner. Now, of course, he will understand that an asset being sold as a going concern that has some substance behind it, which is playing squads and league positions, is going to return him more money than ultimately is going to be if it's demoted and consequenced and its playing squad is valueless and its football stadium is falling apart. It doesn't need an MP to say that. What an MP is doing is representing his constituency and the idea that people are very concerned about their football club. Chancery will sell the club at a price that somehow meets some of his expectations. Is about matching the buyer with the seller. And yes, background noise is part of it. But you can't force it, and neither will an independent regulator be able to.
Well, the regulator will have a lot more powers. The regulator can eventually.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that.
That's in the legislation.
Yeah, and I've read the football governance bill and studied it and debated it with the former DCMS head and looked at the ramifications of the governance bill and how it will be overlaid over current situations. But the idea that it can prohibit and stop certain owners buying football clubs and operating in certain ways is for the birds. And I sit here listening to politicians coming on here and talking about, we want free to air, we want to have broadcasting rights given free to air. Wonderful. You guys seem to think everything operates in a vacuum and is independent. You create one solution and you provide a problem with another.
Yeah, there's another problem, isn't there? That some people in the media lump all politicians together and say none of us have got any interest, ideas, or worthwhile thoughts about football.
Well, most of the time you haven't.
Well, yeah, okay, and I think also that some of the pundits that come on as well probably haven't either. So we could debate. Debate that. All I'm saying is, I think there is a willingness at the EFL to try and find a way forward.
Oh, there absolutely is, and you've got some very competent operators in there. You've got two of the best operators that have been in the EFL in Rick Parry and Trevor Birch, that operate at a very high level. They don't want to run football clubs themselves.
No, and they don't want to see a football club collapse either.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So they want to find a way forward. They see the regulator as being a help for the future. The EFL supported the creation of the regulator very strongly indeed. And I liaise with the EFL right through the parliamentary stages of the Football Governance Bill. It's something they want to see. They work closely with MPs. They recognise MPs sometimes have an ability to do things. We don't always get it right, of course not. But I think the Governance Bill is something we have got right. What we need now is to get David Coogan and his staff up and running. And you're absolutely right in your comments. We shouldn't be skimping on a few £1 million here and there. We've got to get this job done, and we've got to do it properly.
Clive, what happens to Sheffield Wednesday in the next weeks, months, if the club isn't sold?
Potentially it just goes out of existence, because at some point he has run out of money. One of the Supporters Trust members, Rob Brooks, has done an excellent analysis of his companies that he actually owns. They're losing money. He may have had money at one time. He hasn't got money at present. Has he been borrowing money to keep the club afloat? Possibly, but no one knows, because currently you can't say to the owner, where's your money coming from? The regulator will have the power to do that, of course. But in the meantime, the club could fold. It's as bad as that. So hopefully the EFL, talking to Chancery, can find an agreed way forward, and also look at other pressures that can be brought. Maybe just the possibility of the regulator coming down the road will strengthen the EFL's hands. But certainly the EFL are reaching out, are talking to the Supporters Trust at the club, and are trying to indicate that they are doing their best, but with limited powers. And that's why the legislation is coming in, because the EFL, as the regulator at present, has limited powers, because in the end they're a members' organisation. And the members' organisation has given the EFL officers limited ability to do things.
And I'll go back to it. And look, Clive, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Clive Betts, there, MP for Sheffield South East. I'll just go back to it. If you're Chancery, you can't force me to sell something I own.
No, you can't. And the idea that the EFL, with all due respect to Clive, are in favour of the regulator, they're in favour of the regulator because of distribution, because they think it's the only lever that they've got to finally bring the Premier League to the table for what they consider to be a fairer distribution that they abdicated responsibility from 30 years ago because they were too busy playing hide and seek with the FA and fighting with them when the Premier League was formed. So all of the challenges that we've got in the EFL are of the EFL's making. You've got better people in place. So the idea that they want the governance bill, they do not want the governance bill. They want the governance bill primarily because it will give them a lever to pull. The last thing any industry wants is over-regulation. The fact we've got a decent chair in David Cogan, the fact that we've got somebody that's commercially minded, that worked with the Premier League and Scudamore over broadcast deals and knows what he's talking about, is something the government have lucked into, because they did their very level best to make sure that it was a political appointment. And that's the problem with regulators. And to suggest that you're going to be able to... If the regulator goes and negotiates with Sheffield Wednesday now, what is it they're going to achieve? They're going to pick up the tab. They're going to pick up the running costs of Sheffield Wednesday. No. They're not. So, and have they got the skill set?
Can they then not force Chancery to sell?
Well, I don't think you can force anybody to do anything. What you can do is discard their control over the football club in the same way they discarded, eventually the EFL discarded the Reading owner's position. And so you force a circumstance, in the end, that provides an outcome. And I think that Sheffield Wednesday will get sold. I don't think Sheffield Wednesday will go into liquidation. I don't think Sheffield Wednesday will be dissolved. And I don't think it will find itself in a situation where it becomes another Bury. But for the purposes of the media's interest in it, it needs that sort of feel and fabric attached to it to be able to create an urgency. Because with the greatest scheme in the world, if it goes that route, the guy doesn't get back $1. So he will have his own game plan in mind. And just because he doesn't want to talk to an MP or to a supporters trust doesn't mean that there isn't going to be an outcome that ultimately provides a solution. But I understand why people want it. I understand why MPs are involved, because they're representing the wishes of their constituents at the same time as creating an opportunity to be populist in their thinking. And that's why I get irritated with them.
All right, up next, we're going to be looking at football clubs screening their away games back at the home grounds this season. Manchester United have started this.
Wondered why Erling Haaland scores a hat-trick instead of just 3 goals? Why Darwin Núñez is said to have missed a sitter rather than just missing an easy shot? Or why on earth defenders are said to park the bus? Let's break down some of our favourite football cliches. First, let's talk hat-tricks. The term comes from cricket.
Good afternoon, Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan, just gone 12:30 with you until 1 o'clock. We have tried, and I say we've tried to speak to someone from Punjab Warriors regarding the Morecambe situation. Ain't happening today. Happening today.
I mean, they don't have an obligation to speak to anybody if they don't want to, do they?
They don't, but the fans need to know what's going on.
There was an element of that, and the fans will get to know what's going on at some point. And if Punjab Warriors aren't particularly media savvy, or not so much media savvy, don't particularly want to be in the media right now, then that's their gift. Or maybe they don't like the story they have to sell. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, they're going to find themselves, they're in a public domain business. So whilst I empathise with them and say, well, actually, we don't have a God-given right to have an on, who are we? I also understand that in a public domain business, there is a different set of principles, and they might be well served
by coming on and
telling everybody why it is that they put 5 million quid or 3 million quid of their money in a space where they don't seem to have any control over it.
Be nice to know, wouldn't it? Floor is yours, Punjab Warriors. We're here until
tomorrow.
So
Indeed.
there you go. All right, Andy Gelfus Goldstein is attempting once again to compete with the pros in the 9-ball.
Gelfus?
Yeah, that's his nickname, Gelfus.
Is it?
I'm like,
is it because it's full of wind?
No. He's competing in the 9-ball pool. Florida Open, and this time he's got his hardest test to date. He's taking on
7-year-old.
No, 58-year-old, I think. Earl the Pearl Strickland, arguably one of the best players to ever pick up a pool cue. Remember, you can head over to the talkSPORT YouTube channel today from 4 o'clock, or you can tune into the drive show to see how badly Andy gets beat. He's not going to win a rack. Do you play a bit of pool?
Yeah.
I love it.
I like pool.
Yeah, same. Same. And we can have a play.
I wouldn't want to play Goldstein because he's a decent player, isn't he? He's the sort of person.
And he'll make sure he beats you and records it and
puts on dance out everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. All right, let's talk Manchester United now. The fans have announced they are going to protest. Protest group, the 1958, announced plans for a demo before the opening game of the season at home to Arsenal, targeting Sir Jim Ratcliffe. We've just been speaking about him, as well as the Glazers for the first time, with banners declaring, "Jim can't fix this."
Not a happy comparison, is it? For a variety of reasons.
Well, they expected. So I don't know what the expectation were when Sir Jim Ratcliffe took over, but
I guess they were in a desert and someone told them it was Oasis, and now they realise they're drinking sand again. I don't know. If it helps them get it off their chest, I don't know what it creates or what problems it solves or how it makes the club move forward. Yes, you're unhappy, we know it, and you have the sense of entitlement. This is your football club and you have every right to do it, and it's a unique football club, and you've told us all that before, and we've seen it happen when the Murdoch bid was coming in for Sky, and we saw people come along that were very powerful at stopping things happening at Man United. So we know they've got a unique fan base that can be mobilised. I don't understand what it achieves. I don't understand what they get from it. The club is spending money. It's trying to get better. It has been poor. It has made decisions that they don't like, and it has ultimately. And I don't care.
How do they vent their frustrations about being unhappy, though? In a way which is deemed.
No, they can do what they want.
Yeah,
I'm not criticising it for doing it. I just don't think. I don't see what it achieves. Does it achieve a togetherness to build? I mean, they don't want to line the pockets of the Glazers. They don't want to put players to benefit. Now they must know by now, the Glazers couldn't care less. They're not going to engage with them, and nothing's going to remove the Glazers besides somebody writing a huge cheque, far bigger than the one they've already been able to wriggle out of people by increasing the valuation by every other means rather than their own money. And you have to give credit to the Glazers, because the one thing they are able to do is rinse a commercial dime out of everything. And the one thing that David Gill said to me about the Glazers, and he was careful not to criticise them because I think he's still on their board in some shape or form, is that they are commercially more adept than anybody that he's ever seen in football in terms of separating sponsorship deals. When they lost Vodafone or someone, their attitude was, it gives us more opportunity to sell something else to someone else, rather than panicking we're losing a mainline sponsor. But the football club needs to be. I still maintain, despite all the protestations of all the various protest groups, and we've had them on here in various different shapes and guises, telling us that the Glazers are in last chance saloon, which means precisely nothing. That if they were winning on the field, there'd be a different feel. They'd still be unhappy. There'd still be, what is it, the green and gold or whatever it is. There'd still be that.
I think that's always been the argument, isn't it? If they were successful in winning trophies and top of the league as they had,
there'd still be noise, and they'd still be unhappy, but not to the level that they are. So it's a perfect storm for Jim Ratcliffe to walk into. You've got a media narrative like Once Upon a Time, and I make this point even though I'm in the media, to say that it's certain sectors of the media that create narratives like Todd Bowley's an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing, walks around in plaid pants. He does know what he's doing, and they will be successful at Chelsea at some point. Jim Ratcliffe isn't a certain animal, and he will find his way through it. And the need to make these redundancies and cost cuts and stop Ferguson from getting £2.5 million a year ambassador stuff were all sensible things. The problem is once people alight upon it and they turn it into something else, you're almost like King Canute pushing against the tide, saying, well, these are good decisions I'm making. There are reasons behind it. Because Radcliffe came in the door and first thing he said was, I'm walking around Man United seeing the standards so low everywhere. And everyone went, hey, whoa, until things didn't go the way they wanted it. Yeah, he's right. The standards aren't right. The standards aren't good. And all of a sudden, when he starts to implement what he thinks are the basic premises of a decent discipline culture, all of a sudden, a certain section of the media went, not having that, reposition Jim Radcliffe in a certain way and go after him because the team isn't winning either.
Yeah. United are trying to make money away from football games, or I say away from football games at home.
Beanbags.
Yes, because Man United are opening their doors to fans for away games, screening at Old Trafford this season. It's a new scheme that will cost fans £25, which will see supporters that are unable to land away match tickets a chance to watch United from the international suite at Old Trafford. £25 gets you free admission, admission, a free drink and a bit of food.
Yeah.
It's quite a good idea, isn't it?
Well,
I think fans like it.
It's not a bad idea. The only caveat that the Premier League will want to watch is it doesn't depreciate the away attendances. Now, given that most football stadium around the country are operating at about 99% occupation inside the Premier League, and the only reason it's not 100% is because of segregation and in terms of parts between the away fans and the home fans, then it would feel that it gives a commercial opportunity for football clubs to monetize it at the same time as provide a service to the fans that want to see the games in real time.
It's a pub-like atmosphere, wouldn't it? It would be like that, wouldn't it?
I don't. Again, the only caveat would be it doesn't, because the allocation is supposed to be 10% of the ground's capacity for the away supports. And you know, if that's going to
eat into that.
It was going to eat into that. So Tottenham got 60,000 fans at White Hart Lane at Tottenham Stadium, and they were supposed to give 6,000 to Man United, and Man United don't take that allocation.
Then there's an
issue. Tottenham would still and say, we'll sell it to home fans because we know we've got a problem. So I don't see a problem with it. You know, if people want to turn it into a negative that the club should be doing it for free, okay, well, what else should it be doing for free?
A text has come here from No Name, says, I'd be all for my team screening away games on the pitch for certain ones, Glasgow derbies, for example, at Ibrox, league deciders or even cup finals. I'd quite like the idea of the club generating a small income and fans getting to be together.
Okay, so was there a bat to that?
No.
He just approves of it.
Just approves of it. He's very happy. I mean, it's nice to get an approving text sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have a view on it. I mean, if there's a demand for it, and one thing about people concerned about football and its overexposure and 3 o'clock kickoffs and what they do to the football stadiums.
What about the blackout at 3 o'clock? Could that lead to it being abolished?
It depends. I mean, it depends what you think it does to other aspects. The big thing is not about what it does to the Premier League; it's what it does to the other clubs, and how it drains away from their stadia, and how people would be preferring to watch Man United play on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock than go to their own club and watch a live event. They might have some resonance in that. You know, that was a big argument about
some of the 3 p.m. games. Look, let's put the 3 p.m. games are always the weakest, aren't they, in the Premier League? Like those 3 p.m. games are.
Yeah, I don't think it's constructed that way. I think it's just become that way.
Has it?
Yeah, well, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I think the packages that the broadcasters buy, whether it be Amazon buying all the packages on Boxing Day because they want to be able to market themselves to a retail audience on the biggest day of the year for retail, which is Boxing Day, and the Boxing Day sells, and all that leads up to it, or whether it's Sky picking their packages, or whether it was TNT or BT Sport at the time picking their packages. I mean, the 3 o'clock principle was based upon the tradition of football, the factories turning out at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and the workers going to watch their local football team.
That's what it was.
World's moved on now.
Yeah,
it's a different animal, and the balance between what football fans feel is convenient for them against what is the economic model that football. And I know I make no apologies for we keep on talking about economics, because if you're going to talk about players' wages all the time and you're going to talk about what transfer fees are, surely you recognise the fact that economics are part of the game. You can't have it both ways. You can't turn around and say, well, stop talking about the money, and then all you want to do is talk about the money in terms of how much is he on, how much does he get paid, why aren't we buying £100 million football, why isn't that manager being sacked? They all form part of the same conversation. So I like tradition. I think there's a value in it, but not tradition for tradition's sake.
Yeah,
like,
I've got the opening weekend 3 o'clock games.
Go on.
Brighton, Fulham, Sunderland, West Ham, Spurs, Burnley.
Yeah, you're not going.
None of those games are going to stop people from getting to watch EFL or lower down the pyramid.
No, I don't think so. But
not discrediting those.
But that was always Barry Hearn's argument about Lake Norrin, wasn't it? When West Ham were moving into the London Stadium, his argument was that you allow West Ham to be in a London Stadium within a sparrow's fart from us.
Yeah,
you're going to take our attendances away. So there's always a cause and effect, and it's always at the top of the pyramid that they're insulated, and that everyone else is affected by it. But I think fundamentally, on the whole, British football is a pretty big success story.
Great.
And they get most of it right.
Yeah, we try to find little problems, but sometimes there are problems that we're trying to create. But Sparrow's fart was a fantastic line, by the way. All right, you're listening to Oladipo and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out these month's real deals at selcobw.com. Up next, we're going to be looking at Tony Bloom's involvement at Hearts, which is interesting after they beat Aberdeen 2-0 last night to kickstart their Scottish Premiership season. Good afternoon, Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan with you until 1 o'clock. It is Paul Hawksby and Andy Townsend after us. Should be a good show. I think Paul and Andy are a great combination. I think Andy's fantastic. Andy Townsend.
Yes, so do I. Yeah. I think Paul was a brilliant presenter, isn't he? So there'll be a good show.
Should be a good show. All right, let's pick out who's been the real deal this week with Selco Builders Warehouse.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
Hearts are our real deal after they started their Scottish Premiership campaign with a comfortable 2-0 win over a very wasteful Aberdeen side at Tynecastle. Hearts had breezed through the Premier Sports Group Cup stage with a 100% record. And many fans are anticipating a season to remember after minority owner Tony Bloom said they have a very good chance of finishing second in the league.
Scottish football could do with a change in dynamics where it's not a 2-horse race every season, or it has been for the last 15 years pretty much a 1-horse race. Scottish football deserves better than that. So I thought that I can come in and make a difference, and then it was about speaking to a small number of clubs, speaking to people in Scotland who I respect, and when I met with Anne Budge, she sold the club, the history, what happened when she took over, the fact that the club almost went out of existence with the old ownership. She sold it very, very well. I then did a lot more work and due diligence, but really after that meeting, I was pretty much sold that Hearts was the club I wanted to invest in.
If I'm a Hearts fan right now, listening to that and seeing what Tony Bloom has done with Brighton, I'd be very, very excited about it, especially when he says that we can come second.
Yeah, I mean, saying something is very different from being able to achieve it. But if that's if you put something in your sightlines and you go to achieve it, many people would have felt when Tony Bloom walked into Brighton and their boardroom was a scout hut and they were playing at Withdean Grange, which was a paddy field, you would never believe that they would be building a stadium like the Amex Stadium and being so forceful in the Premier League. So you have to give him a lot of currency for that. Anne Budge was a very bright operator who ran Hearts. I remember listening to her dealing with the challenges that they were having during COVID and the conditionalities she'd put on players' contracts that put them in a great position to be able to push back against the challenges that they were having economically. So she's a very smart lady. And they finished 7th last year in the first phase of the Scottish Premier League. You've got powerful forces at play in the Scottish Premier League and two clubs that are very well seated in the positions that they're in. You've got a new ownership model at Rangers, more likely to have had more success if they had the old ownership model that had investor and I would suggest competency fatigue, innovation fatigue about what Rangers could and should do. But Tony is a very clever and bright individual. You know, he's been around for a while now in football, knows what he's doing, and he will make a difference to Hearts. And if he's setting out his stall to make a real difference, the thing for him is how much money does he want to put behind it? How much money can they generate inside the Scottish Premier League to be able to bridge the gap? I would imagine Hearts' turnover is 12, 13 million quid. I don't know, I haven't looked at it. And you've got Rangers and Celtic that are an 80, 90 million quid. It matters.
But is that where he bridges the gap with his analytics? I mean, that's what
possibly
bridges the gap with Brighton.
Possibly, yeah, it has to a point.
Why does that work now still, considering everyone knows about analytics?
Well, because it depends how well they've seeded their relationships around the world into finding players that they get first dibs on and the reasons behind it. I mean, don't forget, it wasn't just a straight line success. Brighton spent time, they made managers, they kissed frogs, they put people in place, Sami Hyypiä, other managers they put in place that didn't get them where they wanted to. They languished in the Championship for a few years. They got out of the division, they stayed in the division by the skin of their teeth, they changed it from Chris Hughton outwards into someone else.
Into Graham Potter.
And to Graham Potter and up and onward, right? And they've got their shtick now. It doesn't mean it translates everywhere else, but it gives you a better chance. If you want someone to do something successfully, you give someone a chance that's done it previously. So he will give them some capital and some thinking. The landing in the Premier League affords his own opportunities because Brighton being in the Premier League has got more pull than a successful Hearts. And we're seeing a problem in Scotland.
Would it not be easier to do what he's done with Brighton in the Scottish Premiership, considering...
Would it be easier for him to do what he did with Brighton with Hearts?
Yes.
Yeah, but to some extent, maybe. but also there isn't this conveyor belt of talent coming through in Scottish football right now. There's this dearth of talent. We're wondering where, Billy Gilmore's come out recently, and there's a few other people. We're wondering where this generation of Scottish football greats that included Souness and Hansen and Dalglish, I know I'm going back a long time now, isn't being produced anymore because the infrastructure in Scottish football and the finances isn't there anymore. So it wasn't a destination. The Scottish League became powerful in the 80s when Souness went back to Rangers. There was a lot of money going in there. David Murray had a halcyon moment running Rangers, and obviously you've got Dermot and JP at Celtic and what they are prepared to do. So I think it's an interesting addition. What is the benefit for Tony Bloom? I worried that it might be a conveyor belt for opportunity to Brighton, which is that if they find some players in Hearts, they find their way out of Hearts into Brighton relatively quickly. That might be because, let's be honest, Tony Bloom is a Brighton fan. Yeah. He's committed to Brighton. He'll be committed to the project at Hearts because he'll be proud of the representation. Will he add benefit? Yes. Will that benefit mean they can break up the top two? I don't know. Dave Cormack's a very bright guy. He's been running Aberdeen for a long time. And he's got a few quid as well.
Fun to see.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Scottish Premiership is must-watch TV.
Yeah.
Right, that was our pick for this week's Real Deal with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's Real Deals at selcobw.com.
A quick word on Rangers. Victoria Pleasant in the Champions League. I hope for Russell Martin's sake.
I do too.
Yeah.
I hope that we don't find ourselves having expected them to be challenged by Panathinaikos and then not expecting them to be challenged by this side and finding themselves knocked out. I hope that doesn't... I want Russell Martin to be successful. I've had a few swipes at him in the past because I think he was swipeable at. But I want him to be successful at Rangers, and I want Rangers to be a very strong force in Scottish football because I want him to give Brendan Rodgers... I want Brendan Rodgers to have to work hard to win the league.
You want a challenge.
And I want Scottish football to rise and be, and people like Rod Stewart, would have the same view. He's calls in all the time, talking to Jim about Celtic, and he wants Rangers to be successful. So anyone that's associated with Scottish football sees the benefit of having a competitive league.
Indeed. Reports for that game will be on talkSPORT tonight throughout all the shows. All right, up next it is Paul Hawksby and Andy Townsend.